just a matter of which ones go first, I guess.
We had started discussing with all the parties and attorneys and everything involved, the best way to handle this and hopefully avoid duplicative testimony, but we didn't get very far in terms of a solution for that.
Well, does this all grow out of the same incident or different incidences?
I believe what's set today all grew out of the same incident. Now, one of the case numbers that you read, I think, has actually already been tried.
Okay.
We had a trial in January on, let me look at my notes here.
469.
469 was tried in January.
Okay. So we don't have to repeat it.
Wait, maybe that's the wrong one.
Well, it looks like, because it's been set for sentencing, is what I had marked as sentencing.
Okay, so that was already been tried, and then the others, I think all arose out of a single,
27th and 29th of September is when those.
so 2 days.
Basically the same type of activity.
All right, does anybody want to make an opening so I'll have some clue as to what is happening here, because I don't.
Your Honor, if I may, just as a housekeeping matter, I don't know, I believe as far as from the defense standpoint for Mr. Ritchie, all I'm calling is Mr. Ritchie is the only witness I have. I mean, if there's any, possibility in cross-examination. I don't know if Mr. Porter has any witnesses.
Separation.
I would separation.
Yes.
All right, I'll turn off the speakers, and anyone that's going to be a witness in this case, other than the people that are sitting up here who are defendants, has to leave the courtroom until they're actually called as witnesses. And that's so we hear what you know, not what you've heard other people testify to.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
Please give me again the case that has already been tried.
It's 469, 22-469.
Has the court made a judgment on that case?
It was held in abeyance. I had a note on all of them that sentencing was held in abeyance.
Sentencing implies that there's been a finding. Has there been a finding?
I don't believe there has been.
It just said held in abeyance.
Your Honor, if the court would like to have an explanation of what's happening here today, I believe I would be happy to start. And if anybody that says that I mistake something, just tell me. We needed to have a special prosecutor, and it was agreed by everybody that it could be somebody from the prosecutor's office as opposed to somebody who's not from the prosecutor's office. I'm responsible for prosecuting the cases in which Charles Porter is a defendant. He's the gentleman over there on my right. And then, and in that case, we have actually 3 different cases. I don't know whether all 3 of them are going to get tried today or just one of them, but Mr. Elvis Ritchie is the victim. And then there are also cases, at least one case, in which Mr. Ritchie is accused of a menacing charge or aggravated menacing with Mr. Porter as the victim. So we have violation of protection order. There's a violation of protection order charge in which Mr. Porter is a defendant. There is an aggravated menacing charge in which Mr. Ritchie is a defendant, and a criminal mischief charge. These 2 individuals are neighbors. They live next door to each other in Proctorville in Rome Township, and they've had an ongoing dispute which at one time, it was my personal opinion, it had to do with the boundary line between their houses. They live in pretty close proximity, but I'm not sure if that's really what has spawned all this or not. However, there's been a number of misdeeds that have been alleged on both sides. And I guess really it's mostly words at this point, but tending towards things that might be violent, might become violent. And so therefore it's important, I think, both sides are ready to clear the air and put the facts forward and let the chips fall. So the question of how to proceed, I guess, is one in which we're willing to present evidence concerning Mr. Porter if the court wanted us to proceed first. And we would then call our witness, which is, where we have a police officer too, but Mr. Ritchie would be our primary witness.
Okay, any objection to that?
No objection, Your Honor.
Any counter statement that you want to make?
I mean, I think that's basically it. This is a neighbor dispute.
Okay, well, police officer first?
Well, we have charges from September the 27th, which both gentlemen are charged with. Did I say this? September the 27th of last year. And then I've got one from September 29th, September 29th of 22, which Mr. Porter is the defendant. I don't know whether those are going to be tried today
Mr.
or
Ritchie was
not.
charged with menacing for September 29th, so they both have charges from both those days.
Okay, so for the 27th charges, our only witness is going to be Mr. Ritchie. We have a police officer for the 29th.
Okay. I mean, I don't have a problem taking the 29th first so we can get the officer out of here. If you want to do that, it doesn't have to be chronological. Or is he going to have to stay regardless?
No, I don't think he's going to have to.
What are you using for the 29th?
Sisler.
Okay, no, he didn't have to stay.
All right, we can proceed on that. That's 22 CRB 635 and 636.
And that's the 29th is when Mr. Porter violated protective order.
That's what all that matters with Mr.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both days. So you may want to ask Mr. Ritchie about both his days, since he's the plaintiff party while I'm protective.
Say it again.
I said that once he gets up there, we might as well ask him about both days, and then we get to Mr. Porter, that'll be the same thing. I mean, otherwise we're just going to go back and forth. And I'm just trying to,
I know. I think the only way to do it is to go ahead and just start. I don't think any of these are going to take that long for us to present our case in chief.
Okay. Do you have a screen?
Yes. State of Ohio recalls Brittany Caldwell. State of Ohio recalls Brittany Caldwell. Brittany
Josh?
Caldwell.
She's out there with Josh.
Brittany Caldwell, let's go.
All right, Ms. Caldwell, you had a bad screen. So,
I used Monday.
okay, it shows. And what's out in the community now is really dangerous stuff, and you tested for it, fentanyl. So, let's see.
Can I have RRG send a report today?
Where are you getting treatment?
RRG. I
Okay.
have my prescription with me.
And you have an appointment there at 2 o'clock?
Yes, sir. I actually spoke to Nick this morning. He called to remind me.
Okay, I sent him the test results. You go there, and then I want you back in a week.
Okay.
See
Friday.
you next Friday. and
Okay, thank you.
We'll see what happens then. Maybe
Okay.
you're gonna have to have a better screen,
You're
or you're gonna go inpatient
okay. Today or next week?
next week.
Okay, thank you.
You go to your appointment at 2.
Okay.
State of Ohio recalls Stephanie Romans. Case number TRD 173010, TRC 171080.
You had a bad screen too.
Yes, sir.
Are you actively getting treatment anywhere?
No, sir.
Well, two. Taylor? Okay. Ecstasy, methamphetamine, amphetamines. You want to talk with her?
Yeah.
And then stick around, we'll decide what we're going to do. Okay. Back to the trial. I'm going to call your witness.
I'll start out of order so that Sergeant Sisler can be out of here. Hopefully I can keep everything straight. That'll be our first witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Sergeant, you want to come up and I'll swear you in? You swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. You may be seated.
Sergeant, tell your name and where you're employed.
Stephen Sisler, Lawrence County Sheriff's Office.
And you're sergeant, is it?
Yes, sir.
Back on September the 29th, 2023, do you remember?
22.
I'm sorry, 2022. Do you remember responding to a complaint about a violation of a protection order at the Walmart store in South Point?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell the court what the details of that were?
I was called, there was two calls on that night. The first one, Deputy Atkins went to, and there was a problem between him and Mr. Ritchie, and he left. And then they sent me back up later that night to speak to him about that call at Walmart. I did speak to him and then took his complaint, and then I went down to Walmart and watched the video. The video did show that there was an altercation in the meat aisle there at the Walmart, as he said. But other than that, I can't. I don't know anything that was said. There was no recording of the audio.
So when you say him, you're talking about Elvis Ritchie
Ellison,
and the other gentleman?
yes.
Charles Porter?
Yes.
Do you recognize both of them in the courtroom
Yes.
today, and you've pointed them out, and
Yes.
those are the people that you encountered?
Yes.
So that there were other incidents on the 29th, other calls that you were not directly involved in on behalf of the Sheriff's Department, is that right?
Yes.
But the one that you were involved in was called in by Mr. Ritchie,
Yes.
and he said that Mr. Porter approached him at Walmart, is that right?
Objection, leading.
Well, I'm just kind of summarizing.
I don't think that was a summary of the evidence, the testimony at this time.
Is
There's
that,
no jury, I think I can weed out this.
and you went to Walmart, did you watch the video?
Yes, I did watch the video.
And did it verify at least that there was some
There was
interaction?
some type of interaction between the two, yes.
Do you recall from having watched that, whether one approached the other, or whether there was a room for them to avoid each other and they didn't avoid each
There
other?
was room for them to avoid each other, but I'm not going to say that there was who approached who. I can't.
Okay. And this was at the Walmart store in South Point,
South.
Ohio. And that's the only thing you were involved in
Yes.
with respect to that, is that right?
Yes. A copy of the video was supposed to have gone. It was my last day, and the guy that was there wasn't able to make the video. Somebody else was supposed to pick it up, and then when I went back, it was already a done deal. It was already past the place that they could get the video.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have here.
Ross?
Something not supposed to be recorded.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Right.
one.
I don't care, I'm just,
Yeah, you
okay.
can.
So you can't testify that Mr. Porter approached Mr. Ritchie in the Walmart that day?
No.
And you can't testify, but let me ask you this question. About how long was the portion of video you watched?
I can't honestly answer that. Not very long. I'm going to say not very long. I can't give you a time frame, but it wasn't very long.
And you can't testify as we sit here today that Mr. Porter didn't retreat when he saw Mr. Ritchie, or not when he saw, but when he encountered Mr. Ritchie?
No.
You can't testify to that?
No, he didn't retreat.
Okay.
There was no retreat between the two of them.
But they weren't together for very long either.
No.
So at some point they both walked up,
They-
one or the
they
other walked
both-
away.
Yeah, they both.
Okay. So you can't testify that he stayed there and went into some prolonged encounter? And as far as you're aware, Walmart is a public place?
Yes.
And did you see the protective order in this case?
I think it's in the file. No, I have not looked at it.
But to the best of your knowledge, it didn't enjoin Mr. Porter from going to Walmart, did it?
No.
Thank you.
I think that's good. When did you learn of the protective order?
When they sent me to the call.
So you knew on September 29th, you knew that there was a protection order?
Say it again.
You knew that on September 29th, 2022, when you went out to take a statement and then go to Walmart, that there was a protection order at that
Yes.
time? Did you review the protection order at that time?
No. We can't review them from our crew.
So you weren't aware there was a 5-foot distance to keep away from each other?
No.
Were they closer than 5 feet when they were talking to each other?
No way.
Okay. And the statement that you took from Mr. Ritchie, take any other statements that day?
No.
Did you talk to Mr. Ritchie's wife or anybody?
I think I talked to her. I think that I talked to her. I think she's the one who wrote the statement for Mr. Ritchie.
Okay. Do you recall what he told you? Was it just about Walmart, or did he tell you about anything else that happened that day? Do you recall?
Something about fence, but the Walmart incident was what I was there on.
Okay. Do you know if anybody else from the sheriff's department had taken any statements that day, or is that the only one that you know of?
The only one I know of. I know that there was another deputy sent there, and then him and Mr. Ritchie had, I guess, a verbal confrontation between the two of them. And the other deputy.
How do you know that? He told you he had an issue with the other?
Yeah, he told me that another deputy had been there, and they had some kind of verbal confrontation, I guess. It was one of our new guys that didn't know the vast things of protection order at Walmart. Didn't know it could be a violation.
All right. I have nothing further, John.
Any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down and see release then.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sergeant, you're released.
thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we'll call Elvis Ritchie.
Okay, Mr. Ritchie, come up and be sworn. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. You may be seated.
Sir, you're Elvis Ritchie.
Yes, sir.
And what's your address?
1475, County Road 42, Proctor.
That's in Rome Township, is that right? We'll start with September the 27th, 2022, even though the deputy has already testified about something that happened 2 days later. You made a complaint to the sheriff that Charles Porter had violated the protection order, is that right?
Yes.
Did you have a civil stalking protection order in place against him?
Yes.
You have a petition?
And I do think this court had.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll get to that. I'm going to show you what I'm going to mark as State's Exhibit 1, and I'm going to ask you if you recognize that.
Yes.
What is that?
That's
Is that the order, or is that the petition when you asked it?
Right, yeah. I presented everything. The court there.
And that's what you gave the court first to ask for the order, is that right?
No, it wasn't given on this one.
Well,
That was given on,
that's a petition for civil stop and protection.
yeah, it was 8-2 when this one was activated.
Okay. This one you went to court and asked for, correct?
Correct.
And that looks like an accurate copy, correct? Your Honor, I have a certified copy of the petition that I asked to introduce as State's Exhibit 1.
Any objection?
You're asking to admit the petition itself?
Yes.
I'm not sure that the petition is appropriate to be admitted. It would be hearsay.
Do we have a copy of the entry?
I don't know.
I'll take that objection under advisement.
Why did you go get a protection order? Why did you go seek the protection order?
Well, I had Mr. Porter standing in the street, threatening me, calling me out. While his wife was harassing my wife, talking his wife, that was.
And did the court, when you went to court, did they grant a protection order? I'm going to show you what I'm going to mark as State's Exhibit 2 and ask you to identify this. Kind of what that is.
This is the order of protection.
Did the court grant that order?
I think it's sometime in August, or maybe it's, I'm not sure.
And it's still in effect now?
Yes, sir, for a year.
Was it in effect on September the 27th of 2022?
Yes, sir.
Is this an accurate copy of the inspection order? And this is a certified copy also, Your Honor, we'll ask to get the amendments.
If I may, protection order said 5 feet, because we live so close together.
Just hold up, there wasn't a question about that. So what's, any objection to Exhibit 2?
It appears to be a certified copy, so no objection, Your Honor.
To be admitted. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Hill.
How do you know, Mr. Porter, who's the neighbor? Right next door neighbor? I've put a picture up here. I'm asking you to turn around and look at it and tell what this shows and what that is.
Yes, sir. My house is the second one over. And Mr. Porter's the first one, going in the same direction.
So you live very close proximity to them,
Yeah.
is that right? On the 27th of September of last year, you made a complaint that Mr. Porter had violated that protection order. Do you recall doing that?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the court what caused you to make that complaint?
I was riding my four-wheeler. Mr. Porter pulled his vehicle up in between both houses. He had his younger grandson with him, which was 13. And as I was riding my four-wheeler back and forth with my little baby, my son, Mr. Porter was leaning over into my property. I assume he was putting nails down, that's what he had showed before, his intention was to put nails out, so I did a flat.
Objection, speculation.
Might want to
Well, right.
foundation's not appropriate. Didn't say that he observed or,
Well,
Yes, I seen,
I don't know if
let's
you
go back to the follow-up question. I'll sustain it to that extent.
Well, did you end up seeing him placing nails?
actually, I didn't see the nails. I just seen him leaning over my property line and in my property, fiddling around in the dirt.
Was that a violation of the protection order?
Trespassing, absolutely.
Did he do other things that day that would be, in your opinion, a violation of the protection order?
Yes, he was making threats. Trying to get me to come to the front of the house where I didn't have security cameras to video.
You have some video cameras at your house.
Yes,
Did you get video of what happened that day?
yes, I did.
Now, I'd like for you to explain to the court how you made these videos that we're going to show today. You have a system that records things and you have a recording device in your house?
Yes.
And how did you make the videos that we're going to show today? Did you use something else to?
Yes, I use my own. My video recorder keeps the information for weeks. So I went in, put the time in for the altercation, and videoed with my phone as it was playing on my video recorder.
Now, I'd like for you to, do you recognize that video?
Oh, yeah.
Is that from September the 27th, 2022?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the court what that is, what just happened there?
I was riding my four-wheeler in between the property lines, and Charles Porter was waiting by his truck, like ambushed me or something, and he came running to the property line at me when I was driving by.
Did he say anything to you there?
Yeah,
So while we have this picture up, I'd like for you to explain what we're looking at here. Where's your house? Where's the property line? Where's Mr. Porter's house?
right, my property is on the right, his is on the left. As you can see, there's just barely room for the four-wheeler to fit in between. But of course, if I had that extra 2 feet, I would have plenty of room in there.
What's going on here in the middle? Looks like there's a bunch of stakes in there.
Yeah, it's a potential poles in the ground for a fence that Mr. Porter had set.
Is that, am I correct that there's a dispute between you about exactly where the property line ought to be?
Yes, sir.
And that's still ongoing?
Yes, sir.
And I'd like for you to tell the court what this video is. Do you recognize it?
Yes, sir.
Is this one that you recorded?
Yes, sir.
And what does it show?
It shows Mr. Porter hanging on the property pole, as he calls it. And he was down there near the concrete, which is like 6 inches back past the pole. And he was digging on the outer edge of it like he was trying to keep me from coming close to the concrete.
Is he on your property there?
Yes, sir. Anything he does, according to his property line, what he said was his property. The concrete was 6 inches over on my property, and he was leaning across on my property. Physically touching my property.
And then what does that picture represent?
That shows half of his body on my property, and him touching the ground like he's taking nails in the dirt.
Was that lifted from the video that we just
Yes,
showed
it was,
before?
it was a still.
And you did that picture also from the video?
Yes, sir.
And did you take this picture?
Yes, sir.
And what does this show?
That's Charlie cursing me and telling me to come to the street where the video camera don't work, and he beat my ass.
That everything that I've shown you so far, did it all occur on September the 27th, 2022?
Yes, sir.
And is that part of the incidents from that day?
Yes, I told him he was violating the PO order earlier where he was leaning over, putting nails out. I advised him, you're breaking the PO order once again. And then he was, well, at one time, on one of the videos, he said, I'll beat your ass and all I have to do is pay a fine. So, he was making serious threats all along.
Tell me what that video is.
It was later that evening. I assume by what I've heard, that was when he was coming back from the sheriff's department, when he was supposed to do a video to them that showed me bumbling holes or something. He drives by, as he sees me coming on my four-wheeler, he flips me off and called me a moron and hollering out his window at me.
You make that video also?
Yes, sir.
All the pictures and videos that we've shown before, those are all ones that you made?
Yes, sir, from the recorder.
And those accurately and faithfully represent what happened that day?
Yeah. There again, that's another violation.
Does the protection order protect you from having him contact you?
Yes, sir. It's no contact from this court as well as my PO order says, don't talk to me, don't approach me. And in public, now at the house it's a 5 foot granted, but in public it's no contact. And it says, if he comes in a place that I'm in, he was supposed to leave that premises immediately. But in Walmart, he did not.
Prior to September the 27th of 2022, and even prior to when you got the civil protection order, had this court issued a protection order?
Yes, when he was arraigned, he had a no contact order, which was violated, 5 or 6 times according to my videos and statements to the police.
Does this appear to be the order?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I have a certified copy of the order that was issued in 22 CLB 469 in this court, which was in effect on that day as well. And I'm going to ask that it be admitted as well as the disc that put the pictures on it.
I haven't seen what he's got. I'm assuming that is actually a certified copy of the order. We don't object to that. The videos, I was provided a disc yesterday that's purported to be these videos. When I got it to my office and tried to watch it, it was not these videos. I asked for a new copy and wasn't provided one. So if that's what that disc is, I'm going to object to its admission. Oh, I mean, this happened almost a year ago, and we got the videos, and I got handed videos yesterday.
I think we handed out these videos a long time ago.
That's not what was on the disc you gave me yesterday? But that was all it was supposed to be on the disc you gave me yesterday?
It's the same as before. It's the same as the disc you got before. What we got yesterday was just a copy of what we had handed out.
There's no new video or photos, it's the same thing.
It's the same.
Okay, well,
That was previously submitted.
Right.
It would be admitted.
Your Honor, if I may ask, do we have exhibit numbers for these admitted evidence, just so we can,
That's 3 and 4 there.
so it just be stated?
Exhibit 1, I'm going to sustain the objection on the application
Okay.
for, I won't admit it, but 2 is the actual protection order that will be admitted. 3 is the disc of the videos, and 4 is the order of protection from this court. Those are admitted. 1 is not.
Two days later, September 29th, do you recall making a complaint to the sheriff about a further violation of the protection orders?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain what happened? There's 2 incidents. Start with the first one. Tell the court what happened there.
I was due to show up at my doctor about 2 o'clock, and that was the first opportunity that I had to remeasure the property line to make sure that what I was saying was going to be correct, where he was 2 feet on my property. As I walked to the end of their property to start measuring, they were on the porch, which was Becky Porter, Charles Porter, and his grandson were all on the porch. Instead of going in, they came running out into the yard, and Mr. Porter and his grandson came down to the sidewalk where I was at, measuring the property line. You know, I had no problem walking by his nephew, even though he made a death threat in the past, but I walked past, you know, me and Charlie, when I was measuring, he was all the way down to the sidewalk, so was his grandson. Why did they approach me if they weren't planning on, you know, violating the protective order? And as I walked by him, you know, he's calling me a moron and a bunch of crazy stuff, and I finished up my measurement and I left. I mean, which would have been even quicker if Mr. Porter and his grandson weren't on the sidewalk with me, you know, harassing, basically. They had opportunity to go in their house and they did to avoid this contact.
what?
I'm just going to show the map of the property.
Okay.
I'm going to have this map put back over here. I would like for you to explain. In fact, I'd like for you to get up and point to what we were doing so that the court can see where we were and what you were doing.
This is my property. That's Mr. Porter's. What I've done is come out of my house, got on the sidewalk, walked past here. They were on the porch. Becky Porter approached and she stayed halfway in the yard. Mr. Porter and his grandson came down to the sidewalk where I was at. I was going to the edge of the property, stand on the sidewalk, and measure from there back to where they said, saying it's their property. And meantime, his grandson stood here, which their vehicle is partially on the sidewalk, so there weren't much room. So I walked past him, and Charlie Porter was here on the property line where I was measuring, and Porter stayed there. I finished up my measurement. That's when they started, you know, calling names, saying all kinds of vulgar stuff. And Charlie Porter said, you know, if my son was here, you wouldn't dare to come out like you are now off of your property. And, you know, I said, whatever. His wife said, you know, she'd slap shit on me or something like that. And I advised her that wouldn't be the wisest thing for her to do. And they had all three backed up halfway in their yard. And Charlie and his grandson was standing closer to here, but his wife, you know, joined him. And that's when his grandson said, Well, I'll just beat your ass, and he acted like he was gonna come at me, he threw his phone down that he was recording against it with. And at that point, Charlie grabbed a hold of me. When, like I said, I was winding the tape measure up, which was right here on the end of the property. That's where I was winding the tape measure up. And as soon as I got my tape measure wound up, I went back in the house. I had no further contact with nobody.
Mr. Ritchie, did you get on Porter's property
So,
and you had a tape measure? Explain a little more detail what you were trying to accomplish there.
well, my lot is a 50-foot. His lot, I'm not sure, I think it's 75 feet, 65 feet. He approached my property here, and now he's got 67, and I've got 48. You know, there's a metal stake that was put in the ground right there, which shows the property line, which was put there by somebody 30 years ago or something, I don't remember. But it was recently surveyed, and that surveyor drove a 3-foot stake marking the property line of Charlie and me, which indicated that I had my right measured out, and Charlie Porter was in fact on my property 2 feet. So he's been trespassing for almost 2 years on my property. He's had 2 or 3 different kinds of fence up. He's had nothing but a string that I never crossed the string, I never cut the string. So if I was going to do something, I would cut a string. Why would I bump a pole or whatever, even though it was on my property? I didn't even cut a string, which would have been like very simple, but I participated with the string as a property boundary, and I stayed away from that far, even on my side.
So you're just trying to get an accurate read on the property line, is that what?
Yeah, so when I come to court.
Objection. I don't think that was a summary of the statement that was made.
Sustained.
Now, after that incident, did something else happen?
Yes.
Explain to the court what happened the rest of that day.
Mr. Atkins, the one that Sisler was explaining about being a rookie or whatever, came out, got the Porter's statement, and approached me as I was leaving my driveway to go to my doctor's appointment. You know, he's telling me to get out, give his story, and I told him that I'd done contacted dispatch, and they said when I got done with my doctor, I could call the sheriff's office to come back out and take my statement. I told him that. He was still demanding me to get out of the car and give him a statement right there. I told him he was trespassing. I told him he was trespassing like 6 times because he was on my property as I was leaving out my driveway. And, you know, I'd already told him that, you know, I had a doctor's appointment. I was going to file paperwork. Later that evening, when I got back, I then talked to dispatch, and they said that's perfectly fine, and he was still there demanding me to get out of the vehicle and holding me up for my appointment. And after that, after I did my appointment, I came back to the Walmart in South Point, just trying to do my shopping. We was coming up the aisle. That's where Mr. Porter and his wife was coming down the aisle, which the protective order says, you know, no contact, or my order said basically the same thing because it wasn't the 5-foot boundary as it is to our home, because there we're going to get close to each other. But it says, you know, he had to vacate any property that I was in. If I was in Walmart, when he seen me, he was supposed to leave that property.
Did he approach you?
Yeah, he came on down the aisle, him and his wife. You know, as we passed, you know, we were 2 foot maybe, shoulder to shoulder. And then he went down the aisle, and I told him, I said, hey, you're breaking a PO order by being in here because I'm here. And, you know, he basically said, who cares? I'm here and I'm staying, you know. That kind of thing.
You can sit down.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so what you're talking about at Walmart, it's the Walmart in South Point?
Yes, sir.
Is that the same incident that Sergeant Sisler testified about a little bit ago?
Yes, sir.
So you called the sheriff for that also, as well as the earlier
He
in the
took
day?
both complaints at the same time. Because when I called, they dispatched ambulance again. He came on, I don't know if there's a report of that or not, but he came to me because I was the one who called. He came up to me and said, all right, tell me your story. What happened earlier? So I told him. He went next door, talked to the porters. He came back and said, well, Mr. Ritchie, y'all saying the same thing, so I'm not going to file for either one of them. I said, yes, you are. I mean, you know, I didn't do nothing, even though they accused me. So I told him, I said, yes, you're going to do a report. And, you know, if you do one on me, that's fine. And at that point, he said, well, I'll do one on Porter, but I'm not doing yours. And at that point, I demanded he got off my property and not come back. Due to the fact, you know, he's not doing his job. He said he was just going to throw it away because we said the same thing. But I was the victim, and I said, no way. Charge me and charge him. You know, we'll work it out in court. So at that point, I called the sister back. He came out, took my report, and said he would stop by Walmart, review the video, and that's where it was at.
So the incident earlier in the day that you've already described, did you feel that that was a violation of the protection order?
Absolutely.
And
Both
then-
encountered.
And those events happened on September the 29th, 2022.
Yes, sir. And both of those incidents were, this court also had a no contact order, and he violated it.
That's all I have.
Cross.
I don't know.
I don't know that I can because he's,
Yeah, I think the state only gets one bite. So
Well, I don't understand what you're asking, I'm sorry.
We
Since
have cross-examination from the defense
your
counsel.
client's prosecution now, so I guess what?
Okay, so he's gonna be called separately again on the other case?
I hope not. Put in that whatever you want to put
In
in.
defense's case, chief, in this case, I mean, I think that I understand what Mr. Steyer's saying, is that I would have the right to recall him when he's being prosecuted on his. So I think we're just trying to, whether we just have them both up, do
Yeah,
everything.
if you got something you want
I have a question about, just to follow up on this case, but I assume he's got cross-examination too.
to, let's do Mr. Sire first.
Okay,
If
let me
you have
just-
any follow-up.
Your Honor, before we get started, if I may, if everyone is questioning him now and only gets one shot, then if that pertains to me too, then I'll need to cross-examine him in this case for the other case,
All right.
which might be a little confusing to,
It's all confusing, but
so,
I would prefer to do it as quickly as possible, so let's
All right,
consolidate everything.
If I can suggest an order here then, since he's already up there as a state's witness against Mr. Porter, maybe he cross-examines.
And he has a right not to testify if he doesn't want
Right.
to testify. Does he want to testify?
Well, no, I think he's willing to testify, because I think it's.
I think he's already opened the door.
He's basically giving his defense anyways a little bit in the other one, so I'll be able to, maybe if Mr. Starr goes next, and at that point,
And I believe he's at this point giving testimony regarding the issues for which he's charged, so I think that he's waived that right.
and I can ask him, kind of do a direct at that point, and then he can cross-examine, and then we'll go to Mr. Porter's, or Mr. Ritchie's prosecution that way.
That approach, I wasn't provided a copy of I don't know the exhibit number, it was 4, that was the other entry. Take a look at
Can I have
that
it?
for just a moment. Okay. Give that back to you, Your Honor. Mr. Ritchie, just to clarify something, do the cameras that you provided you got that information, you got that stuff you recorded with your phone, does the original recording have sound?
No,
So there was never sound recorded in the first place?
correct.
Okay. What sort of a device records these cameras?
Oh, I don't know the name of it.
I mean, is it a hard drive? Is it to create discs? What?
No, it's got memory.
Okay. Is it possible for you to export that information rather than to just put it on a screen and hold your phone up?
Maybe if I downloaded an app or something, but it'd still be on my phone.
Okay.
So it's still the same process.
So you don't have, as far as you're aware, there was no way you could have downloaded this information provided to the prosecutor directly without the intervening telephone?
I mean, if you wanted to watch the whole 24 hours and see what happened, I mean, I could probably record that, but
Well, I'm asking, are you aware if there was a way you could have provided the entire recording to the state?
that was the entire, from incident start to finish. Or it could have been the part that I presented to the police department, because they said, they don't want to watch an hour or two of video to find out exactly what occurred.
Did you present something different to the police than what you presented to the prosecutor?
No, 90% of the time, it came from the police department, went to the prosecutor.
All right. So, what's the source of this map that's on the, it's actually not even a map, looks like a satellite photograph?
Yeah, I got that off of an app.
So you didn't create this?
No,
I'm not
that
introducing
comes
that.
from,
Well, the question is, did you create this? Okay. So you don't know where these who made these lines or drew these lines on this map?
right,
Okay.
the lines are not accurate, that's not a deed. So those are not to be viewed as a deed.
Well, that's not what, sure, okay. But you didn't prepare this map. You didn't prepare this map. You didn't draw those lines. You didn't apply those labels. Okay. If I could have just one moment to consult my client. All right, those are all the questions I have at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Ritchie, we're going to discuss some stuff you testified to. What is it?
I'm going to let him go into it on direct.
He's on direct now, and he's going to cross-examine on the charges against us. We're trying.
Well, you're not prosecuting the charge against my client, so you can't direct him on those questions.
I'm directing him on the defense.
Okay, sure.
All right. On September 27th, you were charged with criminal mischief about knocking over posts or knocking loose or anything to that effect. Did you in fact hit the post?
No,
Why? In fact, I believe we showed, there was video from that day in the incident. The poster seemed to be still standing, is that correct?
yes,
And you did testify a little bit ago that the posts are actually on your property, is that correct?
yes, sir.
And you know that because you went out on the 29th to measure from out on the sidewalk, which is public property, the frontage of Mr. Porter's property, correct?
Yes,
And you testified that's because you knew it was 65 feet
yes, sir.
and that there had been a survey, in fact, there was even a deed, correct?
Correct.
Of Mr. Porter's property
And a recent survey,
and a recent survey, and the deed shows there's 65 feet of frontage.
yes,
And you measured it to be 67 feet to where those posts were.
yes, sir.
And then, so that basically takes away two 2 feet away from your property. So your property went from 50 feet to 48, basically, if you go by this post that
Right.
Mr. Porter put in. And also with your access, your four-wheeler, we've seen video going up the side of your house. Is that the only way to get from the back to the front with your
Yes.
four-wheeler? Okay, and so that, losing 2 feet made it even more narrow for you to go through, is that correct?
So I had to go slow through that.
Okay. Do you know whether you accidentally bumped these posts?
No, yeah,
So you didn't bump these posts at all?
no.
I believe in the complaint against you for the criminal mischief for knocking these posts, there was a statement that there was video of you knocking these posts. Is that correct?
Yes,
Have you received a video?
none.
You also, on September 29th, you said that Mr. Atkins came and you couldn't give him a statement at that time because of your doctor's appointment.
Right,
But you did eventually give a statement, correct?
yes, sir.
All right, and when you gave that statement about what you're alleging, Mr. Porter also, and I believe his wife and grandson made statements against you, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
When did you find out about the statements they made?
When I got the copy from the police department days later, or maybe even I was approached here and on another hearing, and bailiffs didn't give me the affidavits, whatever it was, and I had to sign them and go before the court.
Okay. When you came into court and read the statements that they made,
Yes, sir.
did you notice anything about those statements compared to your statement?
Yeah, they were a lot similar.
A lot similar?
Yeah.
But in reverse, they're alleging you did, the stuff you alleged against them, they're alleging against you?
Correct.
But you didn't have an opportunity to give that statement earlier because you had to go to the doctor's appointment, but they gave a statement.
Yes.
When did you call 911 on the 29th? Do you recall?
When I returned to my house, because I didn't have no phone or no way to video.
Okay. When you returned from the doctor's appointment? Or when?
No, when the altercation happened.
Okay. So you called 911 at the time that it happened? You didn't wait a little bit later and then?
Absolutely, yeah.
And by the time the deputy came out, you had a doctor's appointment, you were leaving, and you already talked to dispatch, is that correct?
Yes.
And then later on, when you were at that Walmart, and we've got the days from before, and we've seen the video and everything else, and your order, and you testified that within 5 feet, but even in that order, it says even if they actually approach you, they have to leave immediately, is that correct?
Correct.
In those videos, it appeared that he was leaving immediately?
No.
Okay. Did it look like his coming over your property or lunging at you from the truck or anything else that was an accident?
No.
So we have that video, but then we have allegations of you and allegations of videos that have not been presented by the state, so I don't know where these videos are. If they do exist, we haven't received them, so.
His grandson reported the whole incident on the 29th.
Right, when you were measuring the property and they were outside and they made threats towards you and they alleged you made threats back or you made
Right.
threats. All right, so basically you were arguing back and forth.
Excuse me.
Did at any point did they come across, get close to you?
Yes.
How close did they get?
His grandson, maybe this close, because he's pinned by the vehicle, because it's on part of the sidewalk, which is limited. You know, instead of stepping on their property, I only had a piece of the sidewalk to walk on, and then Mr. Porter was probably 8 feet from the corner on the sidewalk with me, that I had to walk past to the end to get the full measurement of his property.
All right, so on the 29th, they alleged that you, it was an M4 menacing, that you threatened them at some point. Did you make threats to them?
No.
In fact, in your, I believe it's Exhibit 2, is the order, number 13, it says, the respondent, which this report shall have no contact, including but not limited to physical, verbal, or written. So that day it was a verbal exchange, correct? In fact, both days there was verbal exchange. Is that correct?
Yes, and the distance was violated as well.
There's no physical contact by either party, is that?
No.
Okay. So it's your testimony today that, one, you did knock the post on 27th, correct?
Correct.
That you say were on your property, and then on the 29th, you were charged with menacing, and you said you didn't make threats to them. Did you say anything in response to them, if they made threats towards you?
Yes, I did. When they, I didn't see nobody on my camera, so that's why I went out. I was gonna make a quick measurement, but they were on the porch, and instead of going in or standing on the porch, whatever, they approached me on the sidewalk. And, like I said, Mr. Porter said, his son Trevor would I asked if I even attempted to step in the road while he was there. And then I said, oh, well, something, he's not here, whatever. And that's when his wife said, she come out there and slapped the shit out of him. I told her that might not be a good idea, because at that point, I've got the chance to defend myself. And then I guess his grandson didn't like it. Then he threw his phone down in the grass instead of recording. Mr. Porter had held him back, and he was like, I'll kick your ass instead, 'cause I was on the sidewalk. I wasn't on my property. So at that point, I wanted to roll up, said something, he called me more on, Mr. Porter did. And, the whole time he was, bashing me and his wife and grandson. I had all three of them coming at me. It's kind of hard to distinguish, which threat was coming from who, there was so many. So I wanted to take my truck and proceed back to my property. Got in the vehicle to leave from my appointment.
All right, and then the Walmart incident that occurred later that evening, is that correct? On your way back from their doctor's appointment?
Yes, sir.
And so when you finally had Deputy Sergeant Sisler actually came out to take your statement, you gave a statement about what happened earlier
Correct.
when you're measuring, and also what happened at Walmart, and we've
Yes.
heard his testimony.
Yes.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Norton.
Thank you, Your Honor. Give me 1 second, please. Mr. Ritchie, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit. I'm not as familiar with this case as these other gentlemen are who have been asking the questions, but let me go back a little bit and ask you, how long have you and Mr. Porter been neighbors?
I think it's less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years?
Right.
Okay. How long did he live there before he started building the fence?
I was there for more than 10 years.
No, I'm sorry. How long did Mr. Porter live there before he started building the fence?
Well, when the grass was being mowed and some other things to clean up, someone pulled the stakes and tossed them to the side so they could clear the grass, which was the stakes that the surveyor put down. And, I took the deed, I went out there and measured the property line, put up a stake myself and run a string to the other end where it's supposed to be. I wasn't, I was trying to determine where the property line was there so I could get mine on the other side, get the neighbors on theirs. I was just trying to figure out where the neighborhood is, because my line in the back goes plumb over past mine and another person's house. I was just doing it to try to get the property line, so basically surveying my own self. And I don't know, sometime within the next 2 or 3 months, it wasn't no big deal. Somebody tore the string up or whatever, I wasn't worried about it. I dug up the corners, I already know where the property line is. So I basically surveyed the property and I know where they were at that point.
Are you trained to survey property?
No, but I've worked with the surveyor.
You didn't use any instruments or do anything other than take your tape measure to survey the property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You said that stakes placed by the surveyor were, somebody took them out and disposed of them or something. What stakes did the surveyor lay?
Okay, he put original pins 3 foot in the ground and buried them approximately two inches and under, so vehicles won't hit them or so they go over them with the lawnmower. So he drove the stakes in the ground, which is, you know, the surveyor could find.
When was that?
Before the property was sold or given to Mr. Porter.
Okay. And you said those were pulled out?
Yeah, just little wooden stakes. The other ones are like 3 foot in the ground. You can pull them out.
Okay, did you see the other ones?
Yes.
Okay, did you dig down there 3 feet and find them? Is that how you saw it?
No, they're 2 inches under the ground, so.
You told me the other stakes were 3 feet down.
They're drove 3 feet. The stake
Okay.
is 3 feet. I didn't have to
Okay.
dig to the bottom. I just had to find the top of them.
Okay, so it was the wooden part that was thrown away?
Yes.
Okay. And you measured basically from the other side of the Porter property, you're telling us?
Correct.
And how big was the tape measure you were using?
300 feet?
Okay, so you had a 300-foot tape measure?
Huh?
Okay. Did you measure from, it looks like there's a place beside your place that says Jewel Edwards. Did you also survey on down past your property and past Mr. Edwards' property, or
Yes, sir.
where did your survey start?
It started at Porter's, and as I found mine, I moved on to their property, because when you get to the main end of their property, it runs coexistent with my property out back.
When did you do that?
When I put the string up a year and a half ago, when I found out that the stakes, the wooden stakes was moved, I surveyed at that point.
Because you told us when you were doing the survey with respect to your house and the Porter house, that, you know, there was some communications, and so you just took your stuff and went in the house.
Correct.
You didn't continue any surveying or anything at that time, right?
No, I was trying to measure my property, you know, over a year ago, when I put that string up the first time, and it was tore down.
Did you ever have a professional come out and do that?
Not mine, he did, Mr. Porter's property was.
Did
And
you,
I'm sorry.
did you ever go to court to contest the property line?
No, it was surveyed correctly.
And the reason that we're here in court today is because of the charges that you and Mr. Porter have encouraged against each other, correct? We're not here over any surveys or anything of that nature, correct?
What is it now?
We're here today not because there's a dispute over the fence line
Right.
or the property line, but we're here today because of issues that the two of you raised with respect to the conduct of each other, correct?
Well, the property line's supposed to be civil instead of a court matter. It's supposed to be a civil matter.
Simple yes or no, if you can answer that question yes or no. Are we here today for the property line issue?
Basically, yes.
Okay, how?
I went out on the day that I had to go to my appointment, which I had a few minutes to get it done, and I didn't see the Porters anywhere on my video, which they were out back and they disappeared, so I didn't know where they went.
Okay, I'm sorry. Bad question on my part. What I'm talking about is not the one, along the street, along the sidewalk in front of your houses. I'm talking about the one that goes back where this fence is being built.
Okay.
We're not here over that property line.
Okay,
Any dispute over that today, correct?
right, just the front peg.
Okay, just the front peg, because there was an altercation when you were out there and the Porters came out and said some things to you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Who's paying for this fence?
I have no idea, it could be donated. He had 2 or 3 different kinds of fence up. The first time.
You don't, and I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you if you've got something relevant to my question, but I tried to ask my question, you know,
Who split the fence up?
who's putting the fence up?
Mr. Porter.
Okay. Who's paying for it?
I have no clue.
Thank you. How far along is the fence at this point? I mean, is it not done, I mean, are there still just posts, or is it partway done, or where do things stand?
It's about halfway down in the stream from there to the other end.
What we talked, or you talked, a little bit earlier about, did you say it was Deputy Atkins was the first responder, and things didn't work out well between you and Deputy Atkins?
Correct.
And that's when Deputy Sisler took over, correct?
Yes.
There was another time when Deputy Mullins came out, correct?
That was on the 27th.
On the 27th.
Yes.
You talked to Deputy Mullins at that point, correct?
Yes.
You and Deputy Mullins didn't get along very well either, did you?
No.
Why was that?
I assumed, because I hadn't done nothing, and I was the one that called for 911, I was assuming he was coming out on my behalf. I didn't know he was coming out on any other behalf. He stopped to talk to Mr. Porter first, and I'm like, I'm the one that called, give my statement first and then work with somebody else. And I was upset about that, but he finally approached me to talk about the PO order that was being broken and what happened to break the PO. And he looked over the PO and, while he was doing that, somebody else pulled up and told somebody just to beat my ass or something, and he called them down and told them, not to say it, which that is considered breaking both orders, his and the other court, by him having his family members to threaten, me in that way.
Okay. Now, Deputy Mullins was out there and trying to talk to you about this, and you told him you were going to do a report on him because you didn't like the way he was handling it, didn't you?
Right, because I was under assumption that it had been told before that his order and the other order, he would be arrested if he violated the order.
You also told him that you'd be better off if they would have just given his badge to a third grader and sent a third grader out to do his job, correct?
Absolutely.
You told him you were gonna, you wanted a supervisor's name, and he told you the supervisor would be out there or would be available at 8 o'clock, and you could contact the supervisor, correct?
I don't remember that, but he probably could.
Your Honor, at this point, I'm going to object because I don't know what this has to do with the charge of menacing or criminal mischief on the 27th.
And we're gonna get there, this is on the 27th.
Right, but I don't understand
I'll
what Deputy...
overrule, because I think it shows what his attitude and demeanor was.
And you remember Deputy Mullins telling you that Supervisor Sergeant, I can't remember who it is, of the Sheriff's Department would be on duty at 8 o'clock.
I'm not sure, like I said.
Do you remember telling him that you didn't want to talk to no damn sergeant? You were going to go to the sheriff? You weren't real happy with Deputy Mullins, right?
Well, what happened, like I said, I called, I didn't know that somebody else had called because,
We understand that, we've heard that.
yeah,
You were pretty riled up by the time you talked to him, weren't you?
yeah, because I felt that he wasn't doing his job. I was under the assumption when order was broken, somebody would be arrested.
And that's the thing, you kept pushing for your neighbor, Mr. Porter, to be arrested, didn't you?
Absolutely, every time he broke the order, I was assuming, that was where he's supposed to go.
He let you make actually, there's several written statements in there that you made and that your wife made, correct?
Yes.
And he allowed you to do that.
Yes, sir.
And he told you how to write a complaint against you or make a complaint against him if you wanted to do that, didn't he?
Basically.
And he took down all the information that was given to him.
Yes, sir.
He left, and actually you told him that he was trespassing in your house, didn't you?
No, I told him at that point, that it was a consensual conversation. And, I was upset for him not doing, I didn't expect Porter to be making a call because I hadn't done nothing. I was assuming he's supposed to come to me first, and then, you know, that was in the back of my head, and then, you know, coming out there and just taking a statement and saying, I'll forward it to the prosecutors. I'm like, you know, a third grader could do that, come out and take a report and take it to the prosecutor. He was doing nothing, not his job. What I've seen, I was expecting an arrest.
Have you seen the report that he did?
Yes.
Have you listened to the interviews that he did?
No.
So you didn't go back and listen to his interview of you or the reporters or of anyone else?
No.
He actually came out there twice on the 27th, didn't he? About a little after 5 in the evening and then after 9 in the evening. Do you recall that?
I think so. Is that the 27th?
On the 27th.
Yes.
You're the one that called again, or you called at 9 o'clock or sometime around there. You called 911, correct?
Right.
And he showed up.
Right.
And about halfway through the conversation on the recording that we have, you realized that he was the one that was out there earlier in the evening.
Possibly.
So he was out there twice. What was the nature of the visit on the second time that he's out there? You recall that?
Yeah.
What was the nature of that?
I was out there riding my four-wheeler, Mr. Porter came back from somewhere, I don't know. And as he's driving by, he flips the bird at me and calls me a moron and just hollering stuff out the window. But I was driving by so fast that, you know, basically all I seen was him flip me off, and I don't know what that was about. But yeah, he was sticking his finger up, called me a moron, and I went on past him.
So that was about 9 o'clock on
The same.
on September 27th. Did you ride your motor, or I'm sorry, your four-wheeler after dark?
Yes.
Do you have is it a gas four-wheeler or an
Yeah.
electric four-wheeler?
No, it's gas.
Okay, it's gas. And we saw the video where he was driving the minivan and you were driving the four-wheeler going opposite directions.
Right.
And you said that he was yelling at you and calling you a moron and saying other things during that brief period of time you guys were passing, correct?
Well, it started, I was parked as he was coming up the driveway. And I just took off from that point. But he was already saying stuff and flipping me the bird, and I was just going on doing what I was doing. You know, I had stopped prior to that.
And you could, when you were driving by him and he was saying things to him, you're there in your four-wheeler, he's in his gas-powered car, you could hear him talking to you when you went by.
No, I heard some communication, but before that, he called me a moron, and after that, he's flipping me off, you know.
Do you recall using your four-wheeler to run into and displace some of the posts that he had placed in the ground to build that fence?
No.
I understand you're saying you didn't do it, but he never gave you permission. Mr. Porter never gave you permission to do anything, to do any damage to the fence post or anything, correct?
Not that I would have to have.
Okay.
Of course, it's not yes or no, but
Well,
no.
okay, you're saying, assume for a moment that there's no dispute over the property line and the fence was built on Mr. Porter's property. He never gave you any permissions to knock down or to bump up against or to displace the fence posts that he had put up, correct?
That would be correct.
When on the 29th, when, I guess that's when you're doing the measurements, correct? And you indicated that reporters were saying things to you, and you made at least some comments back to them, correct? One of the things you said was that You said Ms. Porter had said that she, was going to slap you. And you said that you told her that it wouldn't be a good idea because then you would slap her too, correct?
I don't know if I said that exactly, but they have a video of it. I mean, if we play it, we would see what happened. I don't know.
I appreciate that recommendation, Mr. Ritchie, but I think that you made that statement. Let me find it here. No, let me ask you if this helps to refresh your memory what you said. I'm just going to read from the statement that you gave on the 29th. Said I was finishing up, getting ready to leave. Rebecca Porter said that she would come to the street and slap the shit out of me, and I told her that that would be a bad idea if she put her hands on me and that I would slap her back. Do you recall saying that now? Yeah.
Slap her, beat her, whatever. I mean, I would defend myself.
Okay. Do you recall making any other comments to her?
No, I wasn't speaking other than that time to her. Had nothing to say to her.
Well, what made you say something at that point if you didn't say anything at any other time?
Well, it came at me as his son was going to beat me up, his other son. And then she said, he ain't here, I'll just slap the shit out of you. So that was the conversation.
Okay, so then you responded to that.
Yeah, I said that wouldn't be a good idea, whatever. I defend myself, and then his grandson, who was recording the whole thing, said, fine, I'll just beat your ass. And he threw the phone back into the yard, and that's when Mr. Porter grabbed him and supposedly held him back or whatever. I don't know. I was finishing up. I was ready to go.
Mr. Ritchie, how old are you?
54.
How old is Mr. Porter's grandson?
22.
I believe, and we'll ask Mr. Ritchie this when he's on the stand, I believe he's 13 at the time that this happened.
No, he has one grandson that is
His
13.
grandson, Austin.
No, Austin is 22. The best of my knowledge.
Okay. I believe that the grandson that was there that evening was 13, but we'll ask Mr. Porter that question.
Yeah.
You mentioned Mr. Porter putting nails in your yard, that you thought he was putting nails in your yard.
Correct.
Yet you testified that you never saw nails.
I didn't get off my four-wheeler, go out there and do it, or take a metal detector or nothing. I didn't, no.
Okay. So you saw a man putting nails where you were going to be riding your four-wheeler, and you just ignored it and went on your way and did what you were going to do. And you didn't care to put nails out there, essentially, correct?
Well, I basically told him, as a violation of protective order, if something happens, I get a flat, whatever, it'll be responsible.
Okay, but you weren't worried, you didn't care about getting flat.
If I got a flat, I would say you paid for it.
It wasn't worth looking to see if there were any nails. Correct?
I mean, that's like he barged out at me. I mean, he didn't attack me.
I didn't ask you about, I'm asking about nails. You assume somebody put and testified, and gave statements
Right.
to the investigating officer that he put nails in your property.
Right.
And you never even looked and saw a nail.
No, I didn't know.
One second. How often, you said you rolled every day. In the videos, you can see you going back and forth down the property line. How How often did you do that?
Whenever I felt like riding a four-wheeler.
And you said that's every day?
Well, I rode it every day that I was there, most likely.
Did you ride it more than once a day? Like, did you ride it morning and evening?
Occasionally.
Okay. Did you, I mean, was that your path, normal path to go back and forth between your property and the Porter property?
Yeah, I didn't want to run ruts through my yard.
Okay, so that's what you're doing every day when you're riding your,
Yeah, that's why the ground is tore up and you can see where I was riding.
how many cameras do you have in your house? How many cameras did you submit videos from to the sheriff's department or to the prosecutor's office?
Everything that shows at the property line.
How many cameras do you have aimed at the property line?
Well, that could change because I've got 3 here, and I put some other ones back here to video these just in case somebody messed with them. But I don't consider those the ones pointing to the property, those pointing more to my cameras.
Okay, so you got cameras watching your cameras
Right.
and cameras watching the property line. And we talk about, about the property line, we're talking about between you and the Porters, that property line, correct? You don't have any cameras up front of your house watching the front, the street, driveway to see if somebody's coming in or anything like that,
My
correct?
driveway and 2 video of people coming in and going out my door.
On the street.
No, I got one.
I mean, the street's in front of your house, correct? Maybe I'm not looking
Right,
at that
the street,
photograph.
right, the street is. I don't have nothing pointing at the street. Absolutely no camera.
So you don't, and that's the front of your house, correct? The street is in front of your house.
Right, but if you look, I've got 2 pieces of property on back, which that's where the cameras was set at.
Okay.
It was 1471 was where the cameras were set from.
What's 1471?
That's the property next to mine. In between me and whoever that other one is.
Okay, whose is that?
Well,
Between you and Jewel Edward, or is that Matt just wrong?
That's mine.
Okay. So you got cameras on that property too?
Yes.
Has Mr. Porter ever had any physical contact with you?
No, just a lot of friends.
Has Mrs. Porter ever had any contact with you?
Other than, yeah, we've had a conversation before.
No, I meant physical
No,
contact, I'm
no,
sorry.
like anything.
Okay, none of the Porters have.
No.
What you were ticked off about and what the dispute was with respect to that fence that's being built, correct?
No, it was me riding my four-wheeler. I was riding my four-wheeler, he was putting out nails, and then in front, it was...
But you didn't see any nails.
I didn't get off my four-wheeler to look, no.
You were upset with the Porters because they were building that fence and he was maybe putting nails out that you never found, correct?
No.
I mean, there has to be a reason you were mad at them.
I wasn't mad at her.
You were mad at them?
They were the ones putting nails out on me. I didn't do it.
Well, you don't know if they were putting nails out or not.
Well, that's what he had insinuated that time and a couple more times before that he done.
Oh, so he told you to put nails out.
Well, not exactly, but this has happened more than once.
When he like reach over your property and touch your property,
Yes,
from, I guess from his knees or whatever on his side.
correct.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, sir.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, Your Honor, just a couple of redirects, September 27th, you had incidents before that, correct? In fact, you've already had a trial on something from May of that same year, correct?
Yes. They've been moving
How long have you lived at that property?
over 10 years,
How long has Mr. Porter lived there?
maybe 2.
Who was your previous neighbor? Do you remember, did you ever meet them?
Yeah, I know who they were, but there was no fence line or property thing, because it hadn't been recently surveyed. That's what started the measurements.
Did you have any incidents with them, with your neighbors? What about the neighbor, whoever the neighbor is on the other side? Have you ever had any incidents with them?
No, we get along great.
So, in however long you've lived there, the first time you actually had any incident with a neighbor was with Mr. Porter, correct?
Correct.
What about with law enforcement? Did you ever have any issues with law enforcement or run into law enforcement for any reason before then? So there was discussion about Deputy Mullins coming out, and you were upset because he went to Mr. Porter first to take a statement. And I believe your testimony was you didn't know that Mr. Porter filed anything against you. You thought he was there to take your statement for what you
Correct.
alleged.
Well, they said that he was, Mr. Porter was the one that called first, but on a video that I have somewhere, it shows Mr. Porter and his 13-year-old grandson behind a truck when I told my wife to go call. And so I thought we went first, but I hadn't done nothing to the Porters to make them file any report. I didn't know.
Did you know when Deputy Mullins came out there that they had filed anything or
No.
called? You didn't find out until they called 911 until after you talked to Deputy Mullins, is that correct?
I don't even think he ever told me that they had called.
Okay, but to that point, you didn't know when he came out to take a statement and on your phone call, that you thought you were calling 911, he was there to talk to you, but he went over to Mr. Porter's first.
Right, correct.
And that's what agitated you. Is that
Yeah.
a fair statement?
And then, right after, somebody pulls up, which is maybe Charlie's brother, telling somebody else there to Charlie beat my ass and get it over with. And there was nothing done to him for making threats, that I felt was threats. And then, that violated, once again, that was violating Mr. Porter's no contact and having other people, family members, make threats at me.
And you also already had a history at that point, criminal history with Mr. Porter. He'd already been charged with one thing before, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, you had filed a few things, but you finally got a protection order by Judge Finley, which is, I believe, is Exhibit 2, that was entered as a protection order out of Common Police Court. And then in May, when you're here for court, you got a no contact order with Mr. Porter, is that correct?
Correct.
So when Deputy Mullins comes out there, it was upsetting to you. Is that your testimony that you thought something should have been done at that point?
Correct, because he had violated the judge's order from then, and then, he violated my PO, and nobody was doing anything about it. I'm like, why did I waste my time getting these orders, and nobody's doing anything about it? And I assumed that someone told me before, get that order, and if he breaks it, arrest him and take him to jail. I think a sheriff, somebody told me that. I was assuming that to happen. They all come out there like nothing's going on, and sweep it under the rug, leave it alone, don't worry about it.
All right, and how long have you had those security cameras up?
I don't know. It was probably maybe a year.
A year before this incident?
Yeah, probably.
And most of them are pointed towards, or a couple of them are pointed to your property line with Mr. Porter. You said there's other cameras on your other properties?
Yeah, I have 3 on a walnut tree, which is my corner post on my property. One shines back to the back end of his property, one shows halfway back, and then the other half this way, and then the other one points probably towards my house more so than his. I was making sure that each camera overlapped the one before.
And I don't know if you may have testified to this or not, and there's a question about whether you had permission to hit the fence post or not, and you didn't have permission to do it, but you're saying you didn't actually touch the fence post, so it doesn't really matter if there's permission or not, because you never actually did, is that correct?
Correct.
When did you find out that it was alleged that, was it when you came here that you were being charged with the fence post, or did you know about before the 29th, which was 2 days later?
I had no idea. I mean, I came to court on the other issues, and then the court threw the 2 charges against me from the 27th to 29th, so we just did the arraignment that day since I was already here. I had no clue.
Okay. Those fence posts weren't the first thing that Mr. Porter put up, though, on what you consider your property.
Well, he put up, he put up some like fencing stakes and hung a string from each one. And then later on, he took those up, which I never violated, never cut the string, never touched nothing. I didn't want in trouble. So after that, he took up, half of each stakes and started putting up a 2x4 metal fencing, which is like 5 foot, 6 foot tall. He stretched that more than halfway up his property, and then he stopped. For some reason, he took that down and started putting up a wooden fence, which his son Austin, grandson Austin and his son Charles Jr. was being supervised by Mr. Porter. They were the ones doing the concrete, setting the poles. I did have video of that, which I felt was not relevant. But obviously none of them are contractors, and they didn't know that, only putting 6 inches of concrete in a 8-foot pole was equipped to hold the pole. Contractors, I've been a contractor before, I'm not licensed, but I do that kind of work. In my knowledge, if you got an 8-foot pole, you put a fence on it. The minimum is 2 foot. Possibly 2 to 3 feet is what's recommended by professionals.
Okay.
So obviously, they experience with construction, and when you put this much, as the contractor, it's gonna fall over. They didn't have a couple cupfuls of concrete, and 90% of it was on the top of the ground.
As we sit here today, are there fence posts in the yard? Are those fence posts still standing up?
Yeah, as far as I know. I think maybe some of the centers are not finished where they brought up the other fence, but from somewhere past my house, probably on that piece of property, probably 1/3 of it's fenced and the rest of it just got poles standing up.
And they have been moved back 2 feet, they're still in the same position that they were when they were laid, those fence posts?
Right, that was the reason for the measurement, because they kept switching poles and doing different things. I didn't know, I didn't want to come to court and say, they're on my property, then they're actually not. So I was confirming what I needed to know, that their new poles was still set 2 feet on my property.
Right. Now, 29th, there was a test or a question about Austin Porter being 13. You believe that he's 22? Is it possible? Does he have more than one grandson?
He has 3 grandsons, which the youngest one is 13. The middle-aged one, who has made multiple threats, is 16. He's the one that I told one day to get back in the house and let the adults, do the arguments. Because I didn't want a 16-year-old coming at me. He called me a no-neck motherfucker or something. I don't know what he called me, but, he'd been engaging and making threats before himself, to knock me off my lawnmower or whatever. And the other one is Austin, who is 22, who videoed the incident on the 29th, and I'm assuming if they got hard evidence that I did all this, show the video. Where's it at?
All right, so do you know the 13-year-old's name?
No, I have no clue. The only reason I know Austin's is because he was put on one of the papers saying I assaulted him or threatened to beat him or something.
I mean, is it possible you have the wrong person, or do you believe that the person that still talked to you that day was a 22-year-old?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's the person you alleged threw the phone down and came out to the sidewalk and...
He didn't make it to the sidewalk because, like I said, his wife Becky was halfway in the yard. They were like, I don't know, little down the mountain from there. And that's where Mr. Porter Charlie grabbed hold of his grandson and was holding him back from coming out there to attack me, basically.
Okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Norton,
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, can I ask a couple quick questions?
if you must.
I I'll be quick. Looking at this map, I hadn't noticed, but there's between the space that says, well, up here, you don't care, so I can
Fine.
point at it. So this is the Porter residence.
Correct.
Is this your residence?
Yes,
Is that a building back there?
that's another house.
I'm sorry?
It's a house,
Whose house is that?
two-story, mine.
Okay, but you don't live in it.
No,
Okay, and then this is somebody else, this is Edward Jewell, but it's somebody who's not here today.
correct.
Okay, there's this, like, sort of, I
Yes,
don't know what you call that shape, here between your house
Yes.
and Joel's. Who owns that?
me,
So you own this property? So is like this is the property and that's the property, they're like separate lots or something?
yes,
Okay, but you own both of them.
correct,
Is this a driveway through there?
correct.
Is that where you park?
Yes.
Okay,
I used to park, if you look at the separation going towards the little small house, you can see gravel's there. That's where I parked before I bought the property next to me. Which is still gravel, and sometimes I still park there, but
okay, but you own this?
yes,
Okay, I just want to be clear on where everything was.
Right.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Anything else? You may step down, sir, and I'm gonna take a break and deal with these two people that I've got waiting on drug screens. So let's do.
Federal Law versus recalls Brittany Caldwell, case number CRB 13-1057, CRB 13-1153A, and B.
All right, Ms. Caldwell,
Yes, okay.
I think you need to get an inpatient treatment. And I think,
Can I go Friday of next week?
no, you're gonna go today.
Okay,
So
can I have time to get my stuff together?
they'll help you get that done.
Okay.
Taylor, you're gonna take her, and we want QRT to be involved, or no?
Can I do a 30-day treatment?
I'm sorry?
I said, is a 30-day treatment or a detox possible? Because I had that job and had to do West Virginia Cares and get character reference for Bateman Hospital. I was literally getting ready to get a job in a few weeks. I just got an apartment.
You're testing for fentanyl. You think I'm gonna have to call them and tell them, the hospital, that you're,
I have no intentions of using it again, though.
all right.
I really don't.
Okay, you need to go inpatient, you can go to Bethesda, come back, let's keep it for next week, August the 11th. You cannot go work at a hospital using fentanyl. No
Your
way.
Honor, I'm happy to check in with her and meet with her. What exactly are her charges?
This is on review, sentencing. She had missed review hearings and then posted a bond. Now she's just coming back on sentencing hearings, and
It's from 2000.
she's had
Oh,
problems.
okay.
I can get with Bethesda and have her come in and meet with me.
Okay. More eyes on her, the better, I think.
I was gonna say, I've got to get some clothes and stuff, and arrangements, so
We'll
I can
arrange
feed
for-
my cat and everything.
Taylor will help you.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes.
give Mr. Porter a step to.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Alvin.
State of Ohio versus recall Stephanie Romans, case number TRD 173010, TRC 171080.
It would be our recommendation for treatment inpatient as well for her.
That's what you need to do.
Could I at least have outpatient?
No. Methamphetamine, ecstasy, amphetamine. And you know, you've had a history. Right? It's not a new problem. So I'm ordering you to inpatient. We'll have to put her on next Friday also, August 11th.
I will have them here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And that's just a review hearing, Your Honor? As long as it's just a
Yes.
review.
Review.
Your Honor, I have a charge here. Kristen Shavers was released from
showed up.
I'll call her name, but I don't think so. State of Ohio versus Kristen R. Shavers, case number CRB 23468.
All right, Kristen Shavers was released from the jail, ordered to appear. To my knowledge, she never appeared today, never checked in. She's been called for now. Has not appeared. She was released due to jail overcrowding. It's on a Walmart theft case. So this will be a bench warrant issue for failure to appear. Okay, let's get the lawyers back and get started back on this case.
Where did he go? Where is he out
I
there?
think you would get, I think you would just that.
I was out there, he comes.
You grab the electricity.
He said, he could conversate with his family.
Court is ready to resume this trial.
Okay, so we finished with Mr. Ritchie's testimony. So it's back to you, Mr. Hill. Do you want to call another witness?
We have no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. So now we'll switch over to Mr. Nord.
So you're not going to call anyone with respect to his,
Mr. Ritchie was the only person I was
Okay,
going to call
okay.
in his defense, so.
Okay.
I don't have anybody to call.
okay. Then I'll call Deputy Mullins.
Deputy Mullins.
Is any room?
Is he in the?
Yeah, the speaker turned off, so he didn't know to come in.
Afternoon, Your Honor. Would you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You may be seated.
Could you tell us your full name, please?
Charles Mullins.
Okay, and what is your job?
I am a deputy sheriff for the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been a deputy sheriff?
I've been in law enforcement 29 years, it'll be 30 years next day.
And let me ask you this, you were involved in an investigation of incidents that involved neighbors Elvis Ritchie and Charles Porter, is that correct?
That would be correct, Mr. Mullins.
And I believe we're at least here today on incidents that occurred on two different dates, on September 27th of 2022 and September 29th of 2022. It's my understanding that you were involved in at least part of that, correct?
The incident that occurred on September the 27th of 2022, that is correct.
Okay. Tell us how you became involved in that.
Sir, on that date at approximately 4:15 p.m., I was dispatched from the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office to 1483 County Road 42, Proctorville, Ohio, reference a neighbor dispute. A second call was also received by the resident of 1475 County Road 42, reference a violation of a protection order while I was en route. I arrived and I made contact with the initial caller, who was Charles D. Porter, who was the gentleman seated to the right of Mr. Steyer there at the defense table.
Okay.
Mr. Porter advised that he'd been having trouble with his neighbor, Elvis Ritchie, who was seated to the left of Mr. Smith at the defense table, over putting up a privacy fence. Mr. Porter advised that Mr. Ritchie had been driving his four-wheeler back and forth along the fence line, hitting the post with his four-wheeler and loosening those posts. In addition to Mr. Porter, his wife Becky Porter and his son Charles Porter Jr. advised the same thing. They also advised that they taped Mr. Ritchie on the four-wheeler riding along the fence line all three subjects gave me a written statement, Mr. Porter, his son Charles Porter Jr., Becky, which I received from this.
Okay. And that was with respect to,
The allegation that Mr. Ritchie had struck the fence post before.
did you do anything else with respect to that?
Not at that moment, no, sir.
Okay. What did you do next?
I went next door to speak with Mr. Ritchie, who resides at 1475 County Road 42. He advised...
And that's in Lawrence County, right?
That is correct. Yeah. Actually, it's inside the village of Vidalia, Lawrence County.
Okay.
Rome Township.
Thank you.
Mr. Ritchie advised me that he has a current protection order issued by the Common Police Court here in Lawrence County. That case number was 22-0C-491. It was issued by the Honorable Kristen Finley and the Honorable Neil Porter. He presented me with a copy of that, and he advised that at approximately 4 o'clock that day, he'd been riding his four-wheeler on the property with his small son on the four-wheeler, and that Mr. Porter had pulled his truck from the street into the driveway that sits in between the two properties, and that he observed Mr. Porter bending over the fence line, placing nails on Mr. Ritchie's side of the fence line. Evidently, I guess Mr. Porter had gotten out of the vehicle, was what Mr. Ritchie was alleging, had knelt down and was reaching, I guess, through the imaginary fence line between the fence posts. Ritchie stated that he observed Porter doing this, and he told Mr. Porter he was trespassing and staying on his property. According to Mr. Ritchie, at that time, Mr. Porter began making threats of Ritchie to cross the fence, telling Ritchie to come out front, but there were no cameras so that Porter could beat his ass. As I began to speak with Mr. Ritchie, a male subject pulled up in front of Mr. Porter's house. There was a group of people gathered there. The individual, who was later identified as Mr. Porter's brother, in a loud voice said, "Charlie, why don't you just kick his ass and get over it now?" It was at this point that Mr. Ritchie stated, "Well, he's violating the protection order, he's threatening me," and as I explained to Mr. Ritchie, Charles Porter didn't ask his brother to convey that to him. He was stating it in the public. And I explained to Mr. Porter's brother that he needed to be quiet and he needed to mind his own business.
And how did that, what happened after you told him that?
He was quiet, and I never had another issue on Mr. Porter's brother. I spoke with Mr. Ritchie, and he advised that he had video and still photos of the incident, and that he would load it on a thumb drive for me.
Okay.
I told him while he was doing that, I was going to go back over and speak with Mr. Porter. I went back over and spoke with Mr. Porter. He expressed I would say reluctance, but he had difficulty writing his statement, and I transcribed it for him as he dictated it to me, and he read it and signed it. He also signed a criminal affidavit to charge Mr. Ritchie with criminal mischief, and after completing the paperwork, I walked back over to Mr. Ritchie's residence to check the progress of his photo and video collection, and asked him if he was able to put everything on thumb drive. Mr. Ritchie advised that he'd already written a statement up, he and his wife both had, and did that for me. And I asked about the video, and he said, "Well, while you were over there bootlicking, I did that."
Bootleg?
I would assume that Mr. Ritchie was alluding to the fact that he felt I was showing favoritism to Mr. Porter by writing his statement, which if Mr. Ritchie had asked me the same thing, I would have obliged him as well. It's nothing that's out of the norm. I mean, I could have possibly tape recorded it, but Mr. Porter asked me to write it. I took it down as he dictated it to me and he signed it. He became very upset with me, and he advised me, I told him that I was taking a cross-criminal complaint against both parties and was submitting my report, the paperwork and affidavits to the prosecutor's office. He advised, Mr. Ritchie advised me that he would be filing a complaint against me if I did not arrest Mr. Porter. He went on to state that...
Was that a threat?
He told me he was going to complain on me to the sheriff if I didn't arrest Mr. Porter.
Okay.
He refused to give me the videos and photographs, and he made the statement, "I will give those to Jeff Lawless and make copies and have my originals returned while I'm filing the complaint against you."
Against you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I took both of the statements that Mr. and Mrs. Ritchie wrote, in addition to the criminal affidavit that they signed and attached it to my report. My understanding, Mr. and Mrs. Porter came in sometime later that evening, had video, I think, off of her phone. I'm not sure what became of that, but there was some video off of that. Approximately 9:08 p.m. that evening, I was dispatched back to Mr. Ritchie's residence. He had phoned in that there was an additional problem with Mr. Porter. When I returned, Mr. Ritchie advised that Mr. Porter had returned after I left, and he was driving down his driveway, that being Mr. Porter's driveway. He was making hand gestures and trying to get Mr. Ritchie to fight, was what the allegation that Mr. Ritchie made against Mr. Porter. After Mr. Porter parked his vehicle at the back of the property, he got out and joined some other individuals at a bonfire in his backyard. And Mr. Ritchie advised that Mr. Porter was standing near a group of people in the backyard when he attempted to do the same thing. And I advised Mr. Ritchie I would add that additional information to the report. Also, whenever I spoke to Mr. Porter, he denied having any conversation with Mr. Ritchie, and that none of his guests had spoken to Mr. Ritchie. Also present when I spoke to Mr. Porter was his son, Charles Porter Jr. The three sons, Harley Porter, Jonathan Porter, age 14, Austin Porter, along with Mr. Charles Porter Sr. There was another son, Trevor Porter, and two other friends of Trevor's who no one was sure of their names, who had already left before I arrived. Mr. Charles Porter Jr. also advised that I had spoken to Mr. Ritchie or acknowledged him. So all the parties that were at Mr. Porter's residence denied having spoken with Mr. Ritchie or having any type of interaction with him after I left.
Okay. But what did you do after that?
I left. I took the, I did, as a matter of record, Mr. Norr, I didn't make that. When I had my second conversation with Mr. Ritchie, I felt it was prudent to secrete a tape recorder, an audio recorder on my person to record the interaction between myself and Mr. Ritchie, as is the second call when I went back to the residence. And I did submit that. I believe the defense and the prosecution both have copies of that.
Yes, sir. What was the angst, the tension, the disagreement between you and Mr. Ritchie on that first call?
I couldn't answer that. I felt that I spoke very politely, very professionally to Mr. Ritchie. I just don't think that Mr. Ritchie was happy with what I had to tell him.
What did he say to you about that? Do you remember?
He was pretty vocal about it. He was kind of demeaning in his manner and kind of told me I was a child could do my job better than he could. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but it was...
Was it something pleasant for you?
No, I wouldn't call it pleasant conversation at all.
Then you handled that professionally?
Well, this is a business, and you have to treat it as such. And people call us when they can't handle their problems, and I'm expected to solve the problem, not have the problem.
And he was not a happy person when you saw him?
No, he wasn't pleased, no, sir. Mr. Porter wasn't either. Just they handled it in a different way.
How did Mr. Porter handle it?
Mr. Porter was obviously upset. You know, he wasn't quite as vocal as Mr. Ritchie was, but Mr. Porter's displeasure wasn't directed towards me.
Did you do anything else with respect to, at any time, with respect to an investigation regarding these neighbors?
This was the only occasion that I had to have any interaction with Mr. Porter or Mr. Ritchie. I mean, once I completed the second call, I did my report, submitted that, all the paperwork and whatnot to the prosecutor's office for review.
And that was the end of it as far as you were concerned?
That's correct.
You received notices to appear?
That's correct.
That's all the questions I have this time, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, I do have cross-examination
Go ahead.
for Deputy Mullins. You did, and you put in your statement that you believe that video was taken by Mr. and Mrs. Porter from their phone, is that correct?
That's
You understand? And it's your understanding that they had delivered to the sheriff's department?
That's my understanding, yes.
But you're not sure if it ever was or not?
I'm certain it was, I just don't know what the disposition of that. We've changed computer systems, we've had computers, I'm sure, that loaded onto that, I just don't know if it was transposed onto a disk or a thumb drive.
Did you personally review the videos?
I don't recollect if I did or not, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I mean, how would you know for certain that it was dropped off? Did you take
I
it
believe
in?
they came in that evening in between the two calls, as I recall, they did show up.
Did you meet with them?
I spoke briefly with them.
And you talked to Mr. Ritchie that day, and you talked about he was upset and not in a good mood and wasn't nice to you, and you acted in a professional manner. But being in the profession you are and the years of experience you've had, were you aware of the history he had with Mr. Porter at that point, other than just the protection order?
I took it just from the nature of the conversation that this was an ongoing dispute or a disagreement between the parties. I don't know to what extent, but I took it from just the emotion that was involved, that this was obviously something that had caused them a great deal of discomfort.
And with your almost 30 years experience, it's not uncommon sometimes for the complaining party to be upset and they don't feel like they're getting justice right away. And without knowing the history, that they actually had history, that maybe you would be a little more upset and maybe not even know that Mr. Porter had actually alleged anything, because he's denying he did anything. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
That someone could be upset based on the history that they have, that, and not knowing that someone else had made allegations that they're denying they did, and, is it understandable that maybe someone would be upset? I'm not saying it's right what he did, I'm just saying they'd be upset.
People are emotional every day.
Right.
And, here's the thing. I mean, I'll go one step further to answer your question, if it would please the court, Your Honor.
Great.
I deal with this and have for the better part of 3 decades. Okay? I'm expected to have a certain amount of decorum, to be empathetic and sympathetic to the public. And over a period of time, in all things, you have to kind of harden yourself to that, to not become emotionally involved in that. That does not mean that the issue is not important to Mr. Ritchie and Mr. Porter. And I will agree with you that obviously this is a very important matter to both of these gentlemen, to the point that they would be very emotionally charged and may say things that they might not under other circumstances.
And I appreciate that, and now, it's not necessarily a question, but it's more of a statement. It's actually to your professionalism. Mr. Ritchie actually said you treat him, you're fair to him, even though he was upset. He's not saying, so I don't think it's necessarily personal for you, but with that though, with him being upset, and you're there to investigate a complaint of knocking posts, did you ever go look at the posts that they alleged were knocked?
Yes, sir, did.
Did you see any that were loose?
I never saw anything to the effect that Mr. Ritchie, anything, video, photographs, what I saw, I didn't see where he had hit them or where they were damaged. I don't recollect seeing that to the posts.
And then when you came out the second time, you were out there because of allegations with Mr. Ritchie saying that he drove by and flipped them off and threatened and everything. And video has been entered into evidence that actually depicts him driving by and flipping off Mr. Ritchie that evening.
Objection, I don't think that's a fair characterization of the video.
Sustained.
But he denied ever having any reaction, actually left the first time, is that correct?
I'll say this, I wasn't provided with any videos or photographs of any of the incident by Mr. Ritchie. This was all brought to the sheriff's office after the fact, so I didn't have the opportunity to review any of that.
All right. And I believe you said, and to go back earlier, there was a brother or someone came and told, or basically blurted out for Mr. Porter to go ahead and
Yes, sir.
kick his ass, I think, and get it over with. And you advised him to stay out of it. Is that
Yes, sir,
a
he
fair
did.
assessment? Okay. But that's the extent of your involvement with Mr. Ritchie, was the 27th.
That is correct.
I have nothing further.
Anything further?
Your Honor, and I don't know if I don't want to cut off Luke, but with respect to that examination, I do have one quick question. You're talking about the demeanor of the parties and the anger of the parties and everything, and that's not unusual in this particular case, the anger by Mr. Ritchie was directed at you, correct?
That is my, yeah, I mean, he was obviously upset. Maybe he was upset with Mr. Porter. Did he convey anything to Mr. Porter? Not that I saw.
Okay.
And not in my presence.
But I mean, he was upset at you, saying a third grader could do your job, or saying he's going to have you trained in the law and things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
Whereas Mr. Porter was angry, but that wasn't directed at you personally. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
One question, Art, does that mean he bumped the post? That there's criminal mischief?
I never witnessed anything to that effect.
All right, his interaction with you there had nothing to do with fence posts. And the reason
His
you're there-
interaction is a complete separate issue.
All right, and that's what he's charged with, is
Yeah,
for
I mean,
criminal mischief.
What context that is, that's for his honor to determine what his demeanor was. That's not, I'm simply here to, and I can tell you in all honesty, I did not witness anything that saw him striking a post. Now, conversely, since you opened the door, I did witness Mr. Ritchie riding his four-wheeler back and forth along this fence road. I saw several videos of him riding back and forth. And I'm here to give facts, I'm not here to give an opinion. If it pleases the court, I'll go out on a limb here, you can draw me back in. That's not the behavior of a man who is afraid of another individual. That's not the
So
behavior.
now you are giving an opinion now. It's no longer
Well,
about facts, so, okay.
I'm waiting for the objection, gentlemen. Well, that's why I'm waiting for the objection. I mean, you opened the door. I mean, you opened the door, we're gonna, opinions.
I'm asking you if that had anything to do, the way he talked to you, had anything to do with the reason?
No.
Okay, that's all I asked. I'm not asking you for opinion, so I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Steyer.
Deputy, when you saw Mr. Ritchie driving back and forth,
Yes.
this was after he had told you he believed that nails had been thrown into the road?
I don't recall, it was a video, so I couldn't really give you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what was being said.
It was a video, but I mean, it obviously, in my understanding, there were other videos.
I misunderstood, I apologize for that. Just to clarify one thing, you said that an individual that you later identified as Mr. Porter's brother came and yelled out and kind of inserted himself into the situation.
He pulled up while I was standing, he wasn't standing there, he just showed up.
Right. And you didn't hear Mr. Porter say, "Hey, brother, join in," did you?
I did not.
You didn't hear Mr. Porter say, "Keep it up, keep it up."
No.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. You're free to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay. Call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, Your Honor, the state would call Rebecca Porter.
Rebecca,
She's out in the lobby, I believe.
what's the last name?
Porter?
Rebecca Porter. The door closed right when you said the last name. Rebecca Porter, come into court, please. And if you would come up to the witness stand, raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You may be seated now. Mr. Norton.
Will you tell us your name, please?
Rebecca Porter.
And Ms. Porter, where do you live?
I live at, in Ophelia at 1483 County Road 42.
How long have you lived there?
3 years.
It's my understanding you're married to Charles Porter, is that correct? How long have you been married?
42 years.
Do you know Elvis Ritchie?
We went to school with him years ago.
Okay, is he here in the courtroom?
Yeah.
Could you point him out, please?
Virgo says she pointed this out.
Your property is located in Lawrence County, right? It's my understanding from reviewing the documents in this case that there have been some incidents involving your family and Mr. Ritchie's family. Is that correct? One or two of the incidents occurred on September 27th involving some fence posts. Could you tell us what you remember about that?
Yeah. We set our fence posts to put our privacy fence up, and Mr. Ritchie just kept riding by 'em.
close as he could on his four-wheeler till he finally knocked them loose. And
Okay,
then later on, the fence just fell.
okay. So you're not, at the time that he was riding, he didn't actually knock them down, he just made them loosen
He
the
hit
ground?
him with the four-wheeler.
Okay. Could you tell if he was doing that purposefully?
Oh, yes.
How do you know that he was doing it on purpose?
I know he was, because he don't want us there.
Do you know why he doesn't want you there?
He wanted the property.
Okay.
He wanted the property and didn't get it, so he was mad.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because he wanted the property.
How do you know he wanted the property?
Because he told the people that he lived with, that he rented off of, that he wanted it.
What do you mean he told the people that he rented off of?
He rented to this couple that lived there the year that we moved there.
Okay.
And then they had fallen out, he made them evict them, and they were the ones that told us that he wanted he tried to buy the property, and the people that bought it wouldn't sell it to him.
And so you bought the property, your family bought the property?
The property was given to us.
Okay. And I'm sorry, you lived there approximately how long? From when you bought it till now?
December 28th will be 4 years.
Okay. What happened after, I guess it was September 27th, after you saw him loosening up or running into your post?
We called law enforcement. They came and took pictures.
What else did
The
you?
officers come and took the pictures of the posts where he had loosened them.
Okay. Do you know who did that?
It was one of the officers in Ironton.
In Ironton? You said you
The
lived, or,
state police came.
okay. Did you do anything to fix the posts after that happened?
We tried to get them fixed back, but we couldn't fix them back. They just he had dug down so deep beside of them.
How is the fence currently? What's there? Has a fence been built?
No, it's a privacy fence.
Right.
But no.
It hasn't been built yet.
Well, half of it's still standing.
Okay.
But the part where he kept riding his four-wheeler back and forth through it, it's down.
How often did he ride his four-wheeler back?
He rode it all the time. Every time he saw us out, he was on it.
For how long?
For like an hour, sometimes an hour, he'd ride it.
Just riding back and forth?
Back and forth, around his house.
Was there another incident on September 29th involving you and Mr. Ritchie?
No, I mean, I've been outside before and he has said stuff to me.
Well, and
I'm
that's
not sure what day.
That's what I'm alluding to. There's an allegation that you made herein with respect to things that he did or threatened or said to you.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
He told me he was cussing my grandson. He had a measuring tape coming across my yard, and he was trying to get underneath the tree where our property stake is. And we went outside. We didn't know he was out there. We went outside. And my grandson was standing there, and he was cussing him. And I told Mr. Ritchie to stop cussing him. And he told me, he said, I will if I want to. And he said, come down here on the sidewalk and I'll slap you while you suck me. That's exactly what he said to me. And that's not the first time he has threatened with anything like that. He has told my husband, I'll kick your wife out, I'll give her something you can't. He's made remarks like that. I don't go outside. Not unless one of my boys or my husband's home, I don't go out.
Well, why don't you go outside?
I don't trust him.
What do you mean you don't
I
trust
don't trust him.
him? Explain to me what you mean by that. You don't trust him.
Why would you trust somebody that's gonna say they're gonna do something to you and, show you their private and everything? I don't want nobody around nobody like that.
And that's what he's done to you?
Yes, he has, and he knows he has.
And that's made you fearful?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me change topics just for a minute. And I may have messed up. Which grandson was it that was out there with you that evening?
Austin.
How old's Austin?
Austin was just 18 at the time.
Okay, so he's not the youngest.
19, I'm sorry.
Okay. And maybe I was confused. Was there any interaction between, who's the youngest grandchild?
The other one.
Who's your youngest?
My youngest one is Jonathan.
And how old is he?
Jonathan's 15.
Okay, now?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any interaction between Mr. Ritchie and your youngest grandchild?
He's called them all names, even my other grandson. He's called.
I'm gonna object. Are we talking
tell
about
him
the
to get
day
in
of
the
this
house
incident?
and make them
I'll
say
sustain it, but it's
threatening
not
things to
Yeah,
them.
There's no charge on that.
And that's what was, okay, let me withdraw that and I'll go another direction. Were any of your grandchildren around when he was making those comments to you on the 29th?
Jonathan was one night, and Austin was when he was trying to measure where our property line was.
Okay, do you know which one was, if any of them were there when he made those comments to you about slapping you and
Yeah.
his anatomy and everything? Was one of your grandchildren there?
Yeah.
Okay, who was there?
Austin was there when he said, threatened to told me he'd slap me, and Jonathan was there when he knocked the poles loose, is when he said this remark about, I'll give you something your husband can't.
So that would have been back on the 27th,
Yeah.
when he said, made that comment. But the other ones were made on the 29th.
Yeah.
When you ran into your fence posts on the 27th, did you tell him it was okay to do that?
What, to do what?
To run into your fence posts?
No, we didn't tell him.
Okay, so you didn't have your permission to do that?
No. No, we went to all the trouble setting and trying to set them up to put the fence between us so we wouldn't have to look at him all the time.
That's all the questions I have for now, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Art. Ms. Porter, you keep on saying privacy fence. Wasn't it just fence posts?
What?
Just a fence post, or was there anything between the fence posts, correct?
No.
And you said you saw him bump your fence post,
He did it with his four-wheeler.
and you took video of this?
We videoed the posts where they were loose.
Okay. And what'd you do with this video?
I can't hardly hear you.
What'd you do with this video that you took of these loose fence posts?
Huh?
What did you do with the video of these loose fence posts?
I have the video.
You had the video, okay. How many fence posts were loose?
It was 5.
5?
4 or 5 of them.
And you know for sure that he knocked these things loose?
Yes, I did.
And you said that he goes up and down,
Up and down.
and he's doing it on his property?
He's got like a little go-kart track he's made right there on the property.
But it's on his property, correct?
It's on his property, but the posts wasn't.
You knew that for sure?
I know.
How do you
Posts
know?
is on our property.
How do you know those fence posts are on your property?
Well, why would we set a post if it wasn't on our property?
Well, I mean, did you have a surveyor come out and survey their
Yeah, we
property?
had a survey.
Right, and then you had a deed for it as well,
Yeah.
didn't you? And you said the property was given to you for, I think, maybe for $10 or something.
Yes.
Okay, was that the Pools that gave you that property?
The what?
Mr. and Mrs. Pool?
Yeah.
Are you saying that they rented from Mr. Ritchie at some point?
No.
Oh, okay. You said that he was renting to somebody and wanted the
No,
property.
he was renting the place he owns to somebody.
Which place? He owns
Mr. Ritchie.
I know, which property?
Where the trailer is, we're beside of us.
On the 29th, you gave a written statement, is that correct? Did you write out a statement to the deputy that came out on September 29th?
When he said what he did to me,
No, what you said he did to you.
yeah, the officer come out and took the statement. They tried to talk to Mr. Ritchie, and he said he wouldn't roll his window down and talk to him.
All right, I forgot to say, I want to. Make sure that's true. If she wrote that or something right before she signed. Thanks. This happened on the 29th, is that correct? Yeah, put your on.
Yes.
This is a statement you. Was that a statement you wrote out or was the deputy write out for you? Is that your handwriting?
Yeah,
That's your handwriting, is that your signature?
yeah,
And the date?
the 30th.
30th, so this was done the day after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So why'd you wait a day to make a statement?
Pardon me?
Why'd you wait a day to make your statement?
Well, we was going to that day, and we thought he was coming back because the cops earlier that day came, and he wouldn't even talk to him. He kept his window rolled up and didn't speak to him.
Do you know whether Mr. Ritchie ever made a statement later that evening?
I don't know.
You don't know, but you knew he didn't make one earlier in the day.
And he left when we called the cops.
And you said that he was outside measuring, he had a measuring tape?
He had a measuring, like a measuring tape, yeah,
And he was out front of the house?
out in front of my house.
Where was he, on the
He
sidewalk?
had it plumb across up into my yard, and he was trying to get back under the tree to measure the property, the stake. And when we come out, he started winding it up.
What property stake? Was it a stake that you placed there or the surveyor?
Huh?
Was it a surveying stake or a stake you placed?
He was trying to measure ours, it's a survey stake.
It's a surveying stake.
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
And it's on it's on our property, and he was trying to measure.
How far from the sidewalk is it on your property?
Huh?
How many feet do you think it is from the
Oh, well, I
sidewalk?
don't know nothing about the measurements and stuff.
I mean, is it right next to the sidewalk and it goes down the side, the property line? Is that
It's
correct?
just like a straight sidewalk.
Okay. Do you own the sidewalk?
Huh? No.
I have nothing further, John.
You want to do a follow-up? Ma'am, you were just being asked about the statement that you gave to the deputy on the 30th of September, correct?
Correct.
And you gave it on the 30th, it says at 1:30, that would have been the day after that actually happened, like the sidewalk and him saying things to you, correct? Do you remember what you said in your statement?
I just told him about him telling me that if I come down to the sidewalk, he would slap me and tell me to suck his, you know what.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, thank you.
I think that was already testified to the first time, but I said she testified to that in the first direct. I was just
Mr. Sire?
You testified that Mr. Ritchie had a little go-kart track around his house.
He does.
So does he only drive his,
He comes around, he goes around and around.
So he
He
drives
goes
off-
back and forth, cause where his property is, he goes back and forth, right at the edge of where our posts are.
but he also drives on the other side, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And if he wanted to drive just to get to the back, he could drive around the
Oh,
back.
yeah, he could drive back there, he could have knocked that fence down. But he never drove back there because he drove right where he knew that he was gonna bother us.
Objection to speculation.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Anything else?
No, sir.
You may step down, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, may I have just 1 second
Sure.
to consult with Mr. Steyer?
Charlie, Junior, and Austin.
Austin's here.
Your Honor, at this point, the state would call Charles Porter as next witness.
Porter, come up and I'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You may be seated.
If I may, I have a question.
Yes.
Since I am the prosecutor on the cases in which Mr. Porter is the defendant, will I have a chance to cross-examine him based on his?
He is taking the stand willingly, so.
Your Honor, I think that in both cases, in both situations, if each defendant is taking the stand, opens themselves up to questions.
So yes.
Tell us your name, please.
Charles Porter.
And Mr. Porter, where do you reside?
That's 1483 County Road 42.
In Lawrence County. You know Elvis Ritchie, correct? Just for the record, could you point him out in the courtroom?
Record will show you point of the defendant.
How long have you lived at your current address?
Almost 4 years.
Back in September of 2022, and specifically on September 27th of 2022, you've complained of an incident involving Mr. Ritchie and your fence post. Is that correct? First of all, tell us about the fence. Where it was placed and what the purpose of it was.
Well, we've been in court in Arlington 5 times.
You've been what?
In court in Arlington 5 times.
Okay.
Well, the judge down there told me where this was going on down there so much, that put me a privacy fence up and let it be. So I did. I done what he told me. Because I'm not one for arguing with him. But if you make me mad, we'll argue with you. But I put the fence post up, put the privacy fence up. Cost me $3,000 some. I heard a noise one day. I was in the backyard, and I seen my figs move. So I ran around front because I couldn't tell what it was. And I looked down inside the fence, there he was. That pulled and loosened about 4 or 5 of my poles up the log. I filmed it. Well, the log got there. I didn't do nothing that day because, you know, they were still up when he done that. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks later, boom, had my fence line went down. There. I called the log come. And I said, look at here. He loosened all my posts. And he told me to take it straight to Arlington, and I did. Never heard nothing else from him.
Okay. How did you know where to place the fence?
Huh?
How did you know where the fence would go? How did you decide?
This is a good thing right here. My wife woke me up one morning. She said, hey, the Elvis is in our backyard. Well, I look out the window. Here he is with the survey stake in his hand, walking up my backyard. I went out. I said, what are you doing? This ain't your land. You don't own this much land. I'm moving the stake. It was the stick with the...
Okay, he said that to you?
Yeah, he had it in his hand with a pink flag around it and the number on it.
Okay.
Okay. Out front was the main rod dam. Out in the front yard.
Okay.
Well, I said, put my stake back now. No, you don't own that much land. I said, you put my stake back, or I'm calling a lot. I don't want no trouble. I said, there ain't gonna be no trouble if you put my stake back where it belongs. He just stole it down. Well, the hole's still there. He went back to his property, I just got it, put it back down in the same hole, come out. Went out front, the metal stake, gone. But my wife,
Okay.
gone.
Had you put your fence up based on those stakes, or how did you know where to put the fence?
If I would have put my fence up where the stake was, would have touched his air conditioner on the side of his house. Okay, he comes out with his deed. The main chief of police in armor come up. And he said, what's going on? And I told him. Well, he said, let me see your paper. It had the green line down. And he told me, Elvis, he said, well, Charlie's moved his fence 3 or 4 foot up the hill from you. I didn't want no trouble.
Okay.
He said, what more do you want? I want the driveway, he said. He said, you can't do that. He said, he's being honest enough with you. Well, Elvis goes and gets his thing, brings it out. Well, he shows my property line going half across the each house. That they, the people before he bought had built on.
Okay.
And my property line, the green line shows taking probably 4 foot of his house out. And that, the main guy said, you better leave good enough alone. And he just wants to argue. I've known him all my life. Lincoln County, I believe he gets a female courtroom. I do.
Okay, well, let's keep it limited to what we're talking about here today with respect to this case. But he damaged your fence.
Yes.
Did you give him permission to move your fence, to damage your fence, to touch your fence?
No, sir.
Were you present on September 29th of 2022 when he made those comments to your wife?
No, I was at work. I come home, she was bothered, and I said, what's wrong? I thought maybe said that one thing. He said he caught me outside, took his penis out, shook it at me, and said, I'm gonna give you this when I catch your husband going, something he can't give you. Like I said, get mad. I did go to the road. And I barely got to the road. And I said, you know what's gonna happen when you get out there, either you or me gonna take a whooping for doing my wife like that. He said, I'll give it to you if you want it. Stand there and say, see, he don't film that stuff.
So how old are you?
I'll be 60 next September.
Okay.
He just films what he wants to film.
Okay.
He had his thing on that day, just like he said he was doing with the measuring stick up in my yard. Well, he had his camera on his neck and everything he always films with. Why didn't he measure him out there doing that if he thought we was going to start trouble? He going to do that because he knows we didn't do nothing to him.
We'll check the speculation, Your Honor, again, I don't,
Sustained.
Did he, how often did he ride his four-wheeler?
Well, he stayed there for about 2 months, him and his girlfriend, or wife, or whoever who's and every day. But listen to this, he won't ride unless we're out in the backyard having a cookout, or just out there doing something. Then he parked up. He even went further enough, He cut the exhaust off of it, up next to the motor. It sounds like a thrashing, you can't hear yourself talk. So I got sound in the back.
Do you ever put nails out in his yard?
No. I've been there for, like I said, almost 4 years, he ain't had a flat tire since.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Porter, I want to clarify something. In your complaint, you said he knocked a fence post.
Yeah.
You keep on saying a fence. A fence, I picture post and then something between it that's holding, the posts are holding up.
Well, before I put the thing in, he knocked. Okay, now, I thought, they're gonna be all right, a little bit loose, but they're gonna be, so I went ahead with my privacy fence on. And I also enforced it with a 2-foot. But when that wind comes and stuff, where he looks them up, poof, blow it all down. And he was talking about me pouring a little bit further, doesn't, won't go? No, I'm no dummy. I wasn't born in history. I know it's gotta be 2 foot or more underground. And when he kept riding by, and he'd spin, and he'd wait to it's mud, and he was digging it out, lower, lower, lower. Well, then when he bucked and stuff, the wind come, they just kicked up. He knew what he was doing.
Isn't it true that the fence posts are actually, there's a little bit of an incline between your two properties, is that correct? And your fence post was actually in that incline?
That wasn't no incline before, but that was level.
That was low.
Yeah,
So
so he made it, rutted it out.
you rutted it out,
Yep.
where the fence post is.
Yeah.
So somehow you put dirt in there to have that incline?
No, here's my fence post. This part, towards his house, was level. Well, he run that 4-wheeler so much through there, in the mud and stuff, he dug it out. There's the incline now.
It dug it out. So he was riding his four-wheeler on his property, and it made it lower, and at some point the post came over.
Right.
All right, so it wasn't because he was hitting the post.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
because he
well,
got up
too.
there. Well, you said you had video of this, Mr. Porter.
They got it down there in Martin. I never did get nothing done. They told me to take it straight down there that day to law it, and I did.
You did.
I
But yet,
just do what I'm told.
but yet there's no video today.
No, call and ask me for today.
On the 29th, your grandson was out taking video, is that correct, with his phone? That was the day that he was measuring the property outside.
Wasn't no video of the tub.
Wasn't any video?
Not as I remember, no.
Okay, so there wouldn't be any video from your side either, is that correct?
I don't video. I don't do that, John. I try to mind my own business. I'm not busy body like that is out there. Every time you walk outside, eat a hamburger or something or other. Looking over the fence, asking what they do.
So,
I put up a privacy fence at my pool. Let me get this off my mind. Right my pool.
right, just answer the question, okay? I know you want to talk about other stuff that happened other days. I'm talking about the
Sir, you just
29th.
answered the question.
Okay.
I'm talking about the 29th.
Okay.
He's measuring, you admitted a second ago that you did say something to him, that you'd come out there and one of you is going to get beat up, is that correct?
No.
You didn't just testify to that.
I did not, when the measure was done.
When-
This is when he took his penis out, said to that wife, I come home, she was crying.
Oh, this is from the 27th,
Yeah, this
No,
was,
when you're away.
this was before he was out there measuring.
and this is based on what your wife told you. You didn't see this incident occur that you're
No,
alleging.
she wasn't crying or nothing, she won't even go outside now,
Okay,
when he's there.
all right.
She won't even go outside.
So you admit that you threatened him on the 27th?
Or what day, I don't remember days.
Well, that's the date you said that he
I
exposed
had
himself.
COVID, let me tell you, I had COVID late in the hospital, 51 days. They give me up 3 times a day. My side effect, I forget, I can't remember.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't lie to you about call the hospital, they tell you, call everywhere. My lungs is 12 pieces, I can't breathe.
All right, so you have memory issues?
Right.
Okay. Nothing further.
Probably just not from COVID either.
Okay. Mr. Hill,
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Porter, maybe everybody else understands this, but I don't. Was there ever an actual fence up, or was it just fence posts?
Okay, come through, set my feet. Okay, my post, is one thing. Okay, then I run my finger. Well, he keeps going by, digging it out.
Do you know what I mean when I say fence post? What does that mean?
I said fence post.
Posts,
Yeah.
just the post coming up out of the ground.
Yeah,
Fence, what is a fence?
my privacy fence.
Okay, there are panels or something
Yeah.
that go up. Did the panels ever go up?
Yeah,
How long were they up?
probably about, I want to say at least 3 months.
And what happened to them? You said the wind blew them down?
Well, that's what I got it. See, I can see. It was left. Well, then when I looked out through there, I told my wife that he's rutting that out. I said, he keeps rutting it out. Well, then one day I seen my feet just shaking a little bit. Well, I go out front, look down. He's a bumping them posts.
So when the fence came down,
And
did the
then-
post come
then-
down too?
Yeah, it is all over.
Knocked them all down?
Half of it.
Half of them. Are there still, what's up there now?
I got about 10, 12 panels still up out there.
Okay. What about up towards, like, next to Elvis's
No,
house?
nothing, it's gone.
And they all fell down because of, you're saying because he rode by and loosened the dirt and that made them fall down when it got windy?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're complaining about, saying that he knocked over your fence or your knocked, whatever your complaint is?
He helped.
He helped. Okay.
He helped.
All right.
If he had to loosen them up, it would still be there. If he had to loosen them up, they'd have been there. The wind wouldn't have knocked them down.
Robert, I see that. Yes.
Yep.
So, Mr. Porter, you were in the courtroom today for the whole trial, right?
Yeah.
And you saw the videos and pictures that we put up here before that Mr. Ritchie testified about. There's a video and a picture of you leaning over the fence into Mr. Ritchie's property, right?
I'm leaning there showing what he's doing. I wasn't on his property, no, sir, I wasn't. You'd see the springs out from that fence post.
But you put the fence posts up.
Yeah, but the spring is the little, I even moved it up here right there when the spring.
So you're saying that even though you put up the fence posts,
Here's the string. Why even moved up the hill from the string?
so you're
Why
saying
ain't even
that,
reaching over on me?
all right, so tell me, I'm going to stop this over here. You tell me what we're looking at here, those posts and looks like there's some metal stuff.
Right here, it's metal stakes. You see them down from there. Well, that's where I had a chain link fence up. And the judge and all told me to put a privacy fence up. Well, I just, as I said to the post, I just went above, closer to me. For I know for sure I won't be on. My property line, where it shows, and even how the guy said, it would go right by his house, right here. That's where he pulled the orange stake up out front. What he done with it, I don't know. I don't know if he did it, but somebody done it because it's gone.
Well, I was going to ask you that. You had the property surveyed before you moved in here?
No, they did, please, P. Judge. They give me the property to raise my grandkids. They put me in a horse.
Cletus T. Judd owned the property before?
Yeah.
And you got radio personality guy?
Yeah.
So, did you ever see where the metal post?
Yeah, it was almost between that tree right there. That big tree, on the outside of that big tree towards the road, that's where the metal post was done. And then my other one went beeline, had the pink flag on it, numbers on it, but here it goes up through the yard with it. Said, you don't own that much property? I said, bit of that. I ain't had nothing trouble since it's a blue guard. I done policing him, I said, you put me in a bee's knees.
I don't object
I
to
mean,
last
I
statement.
thank
The
God
question
for the
was,
place to raise my grandkids.
Sustained. Just answer the questions, Mr. Porter.
But you're not denying that's you in that video there.
Yeah, and look what my arm is, it ain't out to the yellow thing.
Is that you?
Yes, sir. That's when I'm getting back from Martin.
And you're shouting at him and he's right by us?
I'm hanging up like that. I did stick my finger up. Yeah, I did.
And you knew there was a protection order in place when you did that, right? 2 protection orders, right?
No, I was on there until the last law come to my house.
You
I
didn't
never
know
got
you had
served
protection
with nothing, no.
You realized that there was one issued right here in this courtroom, and you
I
signed it.
I don't remember. If I signed anything, I don't
You
remember.
didn't know there was a protection
No,
order.
sir.
And it's interesting because I don't think you've ever said that in court. There's no protection order. What are they talking about? You never
I didn't
said
even
that
know
in
what a
court.
protection, I didn't know what it was. Well, in Walmart, he comes up to me, pats me on the back and said, you're not supposed to be here. I don't know if I was there first or he was there first. I didn't know I didn't supposed to be around that man.
Let's see. Your Honor, the copy of the protection order issued by this court.
I can't read. I can't read a lick. And if you think I can, I'll get my school papers and show you I can't read.
This is Exhibit 4.
And it wasn't ready to me what I was signing.
All right, but you did sign it.
Well, I probably did.
And so you're saying you didn't even realize that there was a
No.
protection order against you. What did you think you were coming to court for?
Over him.
But you didn't know what the charges were against you, that you violated a protection order?
No. I just know I'll come back to court, got there, and I was there every day of the week.
I can't believe that your lawyer didn't explain it to you.
objection, there was no question there.
Sustained.
This is way back in May of 2022 that you were in court the first time about that incident we already have a trial about.
But I mean, if you did explain to me, tell me about it, I don't remember. That's what I say. But being at Walmart, what if I was there first and he come in on me? Did he supposed to leave? Did
You
he?
had a chance to walk away from him, didn't you? And you didn't do it. You walked up to him.
No one ever. He come up to my back and said, you don't take me on the back, said, you know I've got a protection order against you? Asked him if he won't lie. And I said, no. And I said, well, what's that? And he was telling me, well, why didn't he leave? If he seen me walk down our grocery shopping, why didn't he leave? Because I sure didn't see him. If he know that was against me, why didn't he leave? I don't have to get out of Walmart.
Did you have a protection order at that time from him,
Who?
from Mr. Ritchie, to keep him away from you?
No, they don't ever have none.
That's all I have here.
Mr. Porter, in the incident at Walmart, Mr. Ritchie came up to you from behind.
Yes, sir.
You didn't see him.
I didn't even know he was there. No, sir.
And he touched you?
Touched me on the back, said, you know you don't supposed to be around me? I said, no, sir, I don't. He said, well, you don't, I got a protection order against you. And then walked off, and I went ahead and shot him.
And you went, did you approach within 5 feet of him? Did you approach him within 5 feet?
Well, I guess because he was right behind me, tapped me on the back.
Did you walk up, like back up to him?
No.
So he came from behind.
He come from behind.
Then after you guys exchanged words, you walked away.
I went that way, and he went that way.
Thank you. No further questions.
Very briefly, Your Honor, let me follow up on a couple of the cross-examination questions that were asked. Mr. Porter, there's still some confusion with respect to the fence and whether
the fence posts were interfered with, or there was a fence there at the time. Do you remember giving a statement to the deputy on September 27th regarding your fence posts?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you said?
I just told him about he kept driving them undermined and then it didn't fall, so he bumped them and loosened them up. He knows when the wind would blow, they would go in.
Do you recall telling the deputy that he bumped my fence post with a four-wheeler, knocking them loose?
Yes.
Okay. And that's your signature on that page, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he bumped them, he was bumping the fence post, you said 4 to 5 with his four-wheeler?
Yeah.
And he was doing it on purpose, or was it an accident?
No, that's perfect.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, sir.
You remember that though, right?
What?
You said you have memory issues, but you do remember that conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, nothing further.
Some days I can't. Some days I'll be coming down through here and I'm gonna open honey.
Okay, you can step down. Support.
Can I say one thing?
No.
It's about the cameras.
We're not gonna talk about the cameras.
Well, it's against the law.
Well,
Anything else?
there's not a charge pending about that.
Do you have anything?
Your Honor, I don't have anything else with respect to this part of the state's case.
Is there another part?
Well, they have separate portions.
We have separate
Okay.
portions.
I was going to state has to rest twice.
I don't want to take anything away from Mr. Lamb.
Okay. Is there any other evidence that anybody wants to present that I haven't seen? Okay, so I'm ready to rule. I find everybody not guilty. I'm not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt on any of the charges. And I'll just say this. If you want to, there's a way to go about this property dispute, and it's not the way you're doing it. Supposedly there was a survey, so get that out, and if you believe it, go by what it says. If you don't, get your own survey, or hire a joint one. Say, we're going to pay, split the cost, get a survey, figure out where the property line is. Or you get one, Mr. Ritchie, if you don't like where they're saying the property line is, you got to hire your own surveyor. And then you can go to court over that if the surveyors don't agree. But this, I've got a tape measure out and measured, isn't going to cut it. Also, I'm not finding you guilty of anything, but I saw on the video, you're riding up and down, that's just not reasonable. I mean, you're riding at a high speed right next to the property line. You're obviously doing it to try to provoke something. So that's my opinion. I'm not finding you guilty of anything, but some of your other conduct also is not very reasonable with regard to your interactions with law enforcement. So anyway, I'm not finding you guilty of anything, but that's my opinion. Go in peace. Hopefully you can work this out. Both cases, all cases are dismissed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I need that disc back. Go in the file.
Yeah, wait for me out. It'll be a couple minutes. Don't leave.
Don't worry the disc.
Go if you have the disc.
It's in the computer, I believe.
Right in the
Philip, I try to help a brother out, and you're screwing up my record. What can I?
Hey, Phil. Yes. These are Jenny's cases. Those are them two girls.
Okay.
Mr. Ritchie's case, he's on.
That's why it's
Order goes to Phyllis.
Yes. And I'm working on that wall.
What did I miss?
Just not on the separation of witnesses.
Ron, did he finish it?
Not good.
On both?
Okay, this is Charlie.
Do I need to recall the protection orders?
I might have
We should have planned something.
Wait, where are the files? I need to see if I need to recall TPOs or if there's
Well,
just
there
all.
is one on,
I need to recall,
yeah, on the original case, 4 or something.
I need to
Yeah,
recall
there is one for
that.
him too.
On both?
Yeah.
I need to do those real quick.
Yes, please take this file from me.
So they're both,
Mine's the state for not reading.
oh wait, there's.
Both cases are dismissed.
Sorry. Come on. Philip, this is in the stack.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Oh, so I need to do the recalls on these two, right?
Why didn't you not even open them?
Oh, I know, we have to mark them out, hand write yours, I'm sorry. And how do you, probably do need to have you added, I think you take this work.
Okay, so I
I'll
need,
do it whenever Philip asks me to help.
okay, so
Which
these,
hasn't been too often.
It hasn't been very often, and I didn't particularly think this was a great.
Trial of the century, boys.
Yeah.
Trial of the century.
I'm gonna take these in there and try to figure these out really quick on these recalls.
Okay.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Oh, kids.
Almost has left the building.
I want to get that,
Oh, that's good.
there you go.
I had to work hard not to call him Elvis Presley. Because I kept, every time I think about it, it's say Elvis Presley.
Well, like Elvis, he liked to put his hips at women.
Those people, they are all crazy.
No, it wasn't. What did he lie about?
He admitted that he told him he wanted to go out in front of the house and duke it out.
He fucking confessed on the stand when he said he lied.
He did do that, but all the stuff about what happened,
I don't think I actually believe that he said the stuff he said. You listen to that audio and talking to Mullins. He wasn't even fired up then. I bet you Mullins should get a medal for how calm he stayed.
oh, no question, no question.
Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate you stepping in. I just didn't feel like I should just.
No, you did the right thing, yeah.
Hopefully there won't be any more problems, but he'll be calling tonight probably. So be ready.
I mean, we're protected now. So
Yes.
that's the best thing, that's the best result.
I'm glad that everybody else could figure out who and when to call witnesses and cross-examine witnesses because it was kind of confusing.
Well, I didn't figure it out, I just was watching Judge Capper when he kind of was on the way, I thought, okay, that's an indication it's my turn.
Yeah. Well, and there was nothing on the set about, your witness going to testify, and then told that some friends of mine testify. I guess we knew already, but it was.
You could have, there's no way you could have kept either one of them off. Alright, Philip. Well, I'm going to head out. Thanks, you too.
When it was buying a house, over there, they never had a survey. And basically, yeah, basically, here's their house, they have about 10 feet back here, about 20 feet here, over here, and back, here's the right of way. They were told they had all the way across this creek and all that stuff there, and now people on the other side, not my friends of mine, people on the other side are suing to get that right away back. Not still, not never have a survey, have a background check, do they have your deed search,
I'll let you handle that if you don't mind.
I don't know if, you
You two ever did.
Do you, should have one more. I got Stephanie Rhodes, Brittany, Elvis, you got Charles. Where's Charles?
This is another.
Is it all right there? It's all together.
Yeah. Brittany Cottle.
Caldwell.
They're on, somebody's on the phone about her. Yeah, what are we doing with her?
She's inpatient at Bethesda.
Yep. And somebody just called, hey, Caldwell.
Yeah, that's that.
Just sign the entry, it's right there.
Yeah.
Yes.